Hey guys. Here is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Orochimaru's Target. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are paid, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 6, Electric Relaxation. Hiruzen had never been apathetic to her smile. When she were young, it filled him with a fatherly instinct and a mentor's pride. Once matured, it lit the spark of desire within him, but as their relationship dissolved, the cruelty behind it left him cold, regretful, and mourning the loss of the innocent student he once knew. Now, it fills him with a hatred hotter than any Katan jutsu known to man. He wants nothing more than to strangle the very life from her and then send her soul to the Shinigami for a light snack. "What do you want?" he asked, acid lacing every word. "Kakuku, you seem to ask that a lot, sensei," she replied, and was not wrong. He needed to know what her plot was, what her endgame was, so he could stop it. He'd protect Konoha from her even with his last breath. "Well?" he bit back. "Oh, nothing, just checking in. How's Asuma?" He seemed really upset when we returned. Oh, she loved to twist the knife, Hiruzen thought. She was so very pleased with herself. "Do you enjoy this? I've worked hard to mend my relationship with Asuma, and you tear it down for your own amusement." "Not just my amusement, that was a byproduct. Besides, you only have yourself to blame. I bet you used the same tired excuses you used on me. I have so many demands on my time. My shinobi need me, the civilians need me, and while I love them, even my family makes demands of me. I just need something for myself, just time to be Hiruzen," she said with a laugh. Hiruzen flinched, as that had been exactly what he said to Asuma. He wanted his son to understand the pressures of being Hokage, of being subsumed by the responsibilities of the office. Asuma thought it was bullshit. "You know it's a lie, right?" "Apparently, so does she. You could have just retired, any one of us were ready to take the mantle. You chose to hang on to power until after the Third Shinobi War. You were so in love with being the Hokage, the god of shinobi, that you couldn't make room for anyone else. That's the truth of the matter. I won't debate this with you. And if I have to suffer your vile presence, it should be for a reason. Now what do you want? I heard you lost us the privilege to wear the Uzumaki symbol. Is that true?" "Oh, she's just aiming for all the soft spots today." "You know it is. He's your student." "Hi, but he went to sleep instantly upon his return, so we haven't had a chance to speak. Any ideas for a replacement? Maybe you could make it a contest village-wide. To emphasize my blunder even more?" "Yes. Now you're getting it," she said with genuine enthusiasm. "What do you want? Where does this all end? I won't let you hurt Konoha." "Kakuku, why would I want to hurt Konoha? I live here, I wouldn't burn my own house down just to spite you." "I don't believe that for a second," Hiruzen said dryly. "Okay, maybe I would, but I'm not. That has to count for something, right, sensei? The poets will write epics about your magnanimity. Then I have truly lived a full and happy life." "Once again, Orochimaru, what do you want?" "To tell you my Otonins have cleared the last of Danzo's known root bases. Can't say they killed them all, but they got most of them." "Good, if that is all you may leave," Hiruzen said, and sighed when she complied. It took a great deal of his discipline not to strike down the woman when he laid eyes on her, to so casually upend all the work Asuma and he had done to fix their relationship, and simply out of spite, to further hurt him. He knew she hated him, and it was justified to an extent, but when would enough be enough? He could contain her to the village, watch her every moment, but until he had a firm idea of what she truly wanted, he couldn't get ahead of her. He was stuck reacting to her moves and didn't know how to change the position. Orochimaru left with a smile on her face. People underestimate the power of petty revenge. And with each slight, she was confident the old monkey would continue to think she had some grand scheme with him in mind, when truthfully, there was only one target of her machinations, and it'd be a few years still before she could fully act on them. Thinking about him led her to considering the Raza issue. She could kill him in open combat, no problem. It'd literally be no problem at all, but assassinating him is something a little different. She couldn't just send a snake to poison him, or sink her Kusanagi into his heart. She realized being an S-ranked missing nin has left her assassination skills rusty, as far as the hiding all traces you were the culprit part. She hasn't cared if someone knew she killed a target in years. Funny that. Time was on her side, and because she knew Raza a little, she could make some assumptions. The most obvious being he likely has the information set the release upon his death, but wouldn't place the copy somewhere too far out of his control. He trusted no one and essentially only tolerated Baki because the man was powerful and could keep Gaara on the leash. That'd have to be accounted for, but she tasked Jiraiya with it. he wouldn't keep his hands clean on this just in case he was trying to set her up. Granted, she had plans to implicate, or outright kill him if he double-crossed her, but she was aware enough to realize the likelihood of needing these contingencies were slim. Jiraiya wasn't the fool he let others believe him to be. He was as hardened as any other war veteran, but he'd play it straight when it came to Naruto. Him staying away from Naruto wasn't entirely of his choosing. Her spies had sussed that out, not that she'd acknowledge it. Why give up some emotional blackmail just because it isn't true? That's absurd. Clearing her mind of her digression, she went back to the how. He had guards, so she'd need to find out how loyal and diligent they were to his well-being. That might be an in. She might be able to seduce him, even if she found it repugnant. Not seduction in general, but Raza struck her as climaxer, and she didn't need nor want to deal with that. Or he'd just be really bad because he thought too highly of himself, and would need constant reassurance that he was good or big or something else. Not worth the effort or the nice pair of panties she'd waste on the night. She chuckled to herself as she continued home. She still had time, so she'd think of something. The trio looked on to their singular enemy with exasperation. They'd thrown everything they could at him, and nothing has worked. Their best formations, their most practiced attacks all failed to even graze him. It was a level beyond frustrating, and the feeling of fatigue they all shared only increased their negative emotions. Taking a steadying breath, the leader charged forth with his quarterstaff. A sweep to the legs was avoided with a mere hop. The following swipe to the ribs was dodged with an easy rotation. Not satisfied with just being on defense, the opponent sent a kick to the staff wielder that pushed him off balance. The other two of the trio finally re-engaged, having gained enough energy for a final onslaught. The smallest came with her sword. A textbook dual-handed overhead strike meant for the shoulder caused the target of the attack to jump sideways to avoid it. Said target then had to deflect a series of shuriken that was thrown by the third, the last member willing to play support. Not giving him any breathing room, the kenjutsu user continued to press the attack, downward, upward and horizontal slashes all just missing. Each missed attack draining even more stamina, causing unsteady legs to shake under the strain. The bojutsu user returned to the fray with a desperation-fueled ferocity he hadn't shown. The lone defender parried and dodged their attacks but never forgot about the third member lying in wait, and his patience was soon rewarded as said member decided to join in on the attack. He decided it was time to end this. As soon as the third was within striking distance, he swiftly relieved the bojutsu user of his quarterstaff and downed him with a palm strike. Without an instance of hesitation, he threw the staff toward the other two opponents, the support ninja making the mistake of catching it as it left him open for the aerial assault of his opponent. 2 kicks, delivered with a spin, felled the boy and he was down for the count. In an impressive display of acrobatics, the attacker landed on his back and immediately kicking up as to not give his final enemy even a hint of an opening. Seeing she was alone, tired and outmatched, she laid her sword down in defeat and was immediately greeted with a smile and him rubbing her head. She broke out into a blush but slapped his hand away. "Don't do that! Why not, Moegi-chan? You did really well, you all did." Groans is all Naruto got in response. "You're too good, boss. We can't hit you," Konohamaru complained. "It's not that, I'm moving just a bit beyond you guys' speed. You just have to get a little more creative with your tactics. A direct assault can be useful, especially when collectively you have the superior skills, but when you're outmatched you have to find or create your own advantages and then exploit it," he said before looking to Udan. "You abandoned the support role too fast, Udan. It's a good impulse to want to protect your team, but protection can take many forms. Had you continued to pepper me with shuriken, it might have created an opening for Khan or Moegi. You need to get familiar with how they fight so you can guide opponents to where they be most vulnerable," Naruto explained and saw Udan look down in shame or silent recrimination. "However, you're on your way there. Early on, when they needed a break or some space, you made it for them and you're good at letting them know what you're thinking. Once you start picking up some tactics and strategy in the academy, you'll be even better. And your shuriken jutsu is well trained for your age." Naruto finished and saw the boy smile brightly. "Moegi-chan, what's the most important thing to a swordsman or woman as the case may be?" "Breathing. If you can control your breathing, you can avoid tension in your muscles. Tension slows down reaction time and robs the strikes of speed and power." "Good. What's the second?" "Legs. They have to be strong and swift, steady and nimble." "Exactly. Once you were getting tired, your breathing control was shot, and your legs were unsteady. When that happens, you have to switch things up. It takes dedication to learn kenjutsu, but you aren't a samurai, that isn't all you'll be using," he said, and she nodded, taking the criticism a little better than Udan. "But you are improving and you'll be ready to learn a style outside of the basics soon. Khan, good staff work. Speed and control are all acceptable, but you need to control your emotions. The moment you got frustrated, you started telegraphing your moves. If the other two are following your lead, then you'll make them predictable, too. Predictable is the one thing you don't want to be. Hi. With that being said, you guys are getting better now here dash. Naruto unsealed some canteens of water and some orange slices. Have a snack and some water. I have to meet my Shursho soon. The trio did as told and chatted away about the academy and other events. Konohamaru begged Naruto to teach them some awesome jutsu, and he promised to show them something next time, something small to get them started. He started to depart when he saw Ebisu arrive. He gave the man a nod in acknowledgement and departed, glad he got to spend some time with the brats as he hadn't seen them in a while. Uzumaki-san was right in his review. You'd all do well to heed his advice, Ebisu said. Yeah, boss is cool. He's even a chunin now, Konohamaru said, excitedly, and the other two nodded in agreement. Yes, quite cool. Now, are you three too tired for more training? No, they responded. Good, then let's practice our chakra control, Ebisu said, and fought back the urge to laugh at their facial reactions. I know for a fact that Uzumaki-san practices his chakra control constantly, and it's one of the reasons he's considered an up-and-coming ninjutsu specialist. The better control you have, the more you can do with your chakra. Fine. Konohamaru huffed out in defeat. Good, grab some leaves. While training with the Khan and the gang is always fun, Naruto had to get to his training, and his Shursho didn't appear to be holding back today. His various pained grunts would be a clear sign of that. The goal was teaching him how to handle opponents faster than him by increasing his reaction time and sharpening his awareness. Ugh! He was having mixed results. Get up, Naruto-kun, I barely tapped you. I think we both know that's not true, Naruto said, picking himself up off the ground. Kukuku, okay. But you're so durable. All my other training dummies break. I'm really feeling the love here, Shursho, Naruto replied deadpan. That comes when you're older, I do have standards. Orochimaru shot back before going on the attack again. It was only the slimmest of margins that would allow him to avoid her strikes, a brief sound or the change in the wind. It wasn't a lot, and sometimes he was doing little more than guessing. He ducked and felt her leg brush the top of his head. He rolled forward, making her leg sweep useless. Not thinking, he performed a mule kick that connected with her arms, but it made her pause for a moment, long enough for Naruto to go on the attack. Using the surface walking technique, Naruto clung to her forearm, and immediately twisted, bringing his other leg up for another kick. She blocked it with ease and pulsed her chakra to dislodge her student. Naruto didn't let the loss of leverage deter him as he sent a punch to her face, but she evaded it without effort and tossed the red-haired Uzumaki away as she still had a hold of his leg. Naruto righted himself midair but had to go into evasion mode again as she began to attack relentlessly. Even with his enhanced stamina, being forced to fight above his level drained Naruto, and he was getting slower but not sloppy, his time with the Panthers teaching him how to hold himself even when fatigued. It didn't stop him from getting picked apart as she potshot Naruto until he hit the ground, breathing heavily. Okay, that's enough of that. Good, I don't think there was anywhere left on my body for you to hit me. Better I do it than an enemy, Naruto-kun. Besides, you are improving. As expected, she said with a glint in her eyes. Why? Please don't make me say it. We had a deal, and from my understanding Naruto Uzumaki doesn't go back on his word. Why couldn't my Nindo be I'd eat as much ramen as I can? Stupid me. Stop stalling. Fine. I'm improving because you, Shursho-sama, are the world's greatest kunoichi/genius and the best of the Sannin. See, that wasn't so hard. Now, how is everything else coming along? You having your clones trained with the Kiri swords? 2 of them. Samahata still won't accept me yet, and I'm not going to be a meal for a sword. And the Kubikiri. Saba's sword is all wrong for my frame. Even the name is a mouthful. Kubikiribocho. Would you look at that? Guess I can handle a mouthful. Kukuku, future reference. Orochimaru said with a wink, causing Naruto to blush slightly at her innuendo. I'd recommend coming to an accord with Samahata, it's too useful not to. Now, how about your ninjutsu? Anything new? Maybe a few developments. I wanted to have something definitive before I came to you. So, you know how we've been making plans for any pair of the Akatsuki that I may run into. Yes, you seemed confident you had workable plans for Kakuzu and Haiden, but thought Sasori and Deidara would give you and your team problems. Yeah. I may have the Sasori part figured out even if he's a nightmare for Kurenai-sensei, Shino and Shika. But Deidara was the hardest for me to plan for, given he's a long-distance threat and his natural counter is my worst element. Naruto said and saw her nod. Making a long-distance right-hand jutsu is difficult and inefficient. That's the general consensus. Are you about to show me something different? She asked in excitement. Yep. Watch, Naruto said before performing a lightning-style, lightning beast running jutsu and saw the standard-looking right-hand peter out at 10 meters. Orochimaru didn't look confused nor disappointed as she knew her student wouldn't waste her time, so she waited patiently for Naruto to continue his demonstration. Naruto then ran through the same hand signs and performed the jutsu again, except this time the beast was red and didn't give out until it was 25 meters away. Red lightning? I wonder if it's similar to Kumo's black lightning. I don't know. From my understanding, the black lightning is more powerful than standard right-hand techniques. The red lightning isn't really more powerful, but it can travel further distances and something else. What? In response, Naruto threw 4 kunai that were 15 meters apart, and then performed another red lightning jutsu, aimed at the center kunai. To Orochimaru's surprise, the jutsu split off and hit the other kunai once it made contact. I called that my chained lightning jutsu. Whereas a normal lightning technique is easy to avoid if you're not the intended target, the red lightning seeks other conductors. Best thing? Chakra sources fall into that category. Lost a lot of clones to that one. Could it be made to hone in on a specific target? If I were more of a sensor? Possibly. Not having much luck with Karen-chan's technique? She inquired. No, there's a block. I feel like I'm right there, but until it's resolved I won't make much progress with it. Keep at it, you'll figure something out, but even now you continue to impress me. I'd suggest developing a focus-piercing attack to go along with your wide-area effect one, Orochimaru said after a moment of contemplation. I'll dedicate some clones to it, sure. Good. Any other new developments? Some rough ideas. Once I get something more solid, I'll let you know. Excellent. Now you've rested enough, so unseal your sword so we can get your kenjutsu practice in. Awesome. Let's get wild, sure. Naruto exclaimed after unsealing his katana. Oh, Naruto-kun, so eager to penetrate me. Don't say things like that, Tebeo! Naruto yelled, fighting a full blush. Kabuto was annoyed he had to stop his work to answer the door. He knew his mistress would not interrupt her training session with the Uzumaki, and with everyone else gone, it left it to him. He'd grumble if it weren't wholly beneath him. The Nara that was on the other side of the door didn't surprise him, and he escorted him toward the Uzumaki. However, when he heard a feminine giggle from the training grounds, he lost his footing. The white snake didn't giggle. She laughed in such a way to state her superiority, the predator taunting the prey. She laughed, and it sent shivers down one's spine as you awaited the lethal strike, or had a sense of foreboding, as she knew something you didn't. She laughed, and shit got done. She does not giggle. And yet he knows what he heard, and it was just one of the many distressing things about their time here. Or really, since her fascination with the Uzumaki became something more. They haven't tortured anyone together in 2 months. When they were killing Root Nin, she didn't even try to break them mentally. Just stab. No artistry or anything. She hasn't even forcibly experimented on someone in a while. She was becoming something different, and Kabuto didn't like that. He needed his mistress back. The Nara and the Uzumaki left, but Kabuto was focused on Orochimaru as she stared at him, which was always unnerving, but double so for someone that knew what she were truly capable of. Whatever has been bothering you lately, you need to deal with it, Kabuto-kun, she said simply, and he only nodded. She was right, he simply needed to deal with his problem. Itachi took his leave when Naruto made plans to go to the annual Ino-Shikucho picnic. He was due for a shift change but had to report to the Sandaime before he could call it a day. The Sandaime suspects Orochimaru is up to something and plans to turn Naruto against the village. It's an understandable fear, but Itachi has yet to see any attempt to do so. Suggestive comments signaling a willingness to blur the lines between master and student? Yes. And Itachi really didn't know if the Sandaime would actually prefer that to the alternative. As he arrived in the Hokage's office, he kneeled and awaited instruction. Report. The Hokage ordered his most loyal ANBU. Nothing to report today, Hokage-sama. She has stuck to the same training regimen as when she began his instruction. How is he progressing? Well, Hokage-sama. Whatever limitations his body is presenting, they are finding ways to work around it, and he takes well to her teachings on tactics. And his ninjutsu? Innovative. He seems to demonstrate something new with frightening regularity. He may surpass the Nidaime as Konoha's greatest jutsu creator. A high bar, this I know from experience. So how would you rate him? He would not fall under our understanding as a natural genius like Kakashi and myself were called. He is prodigious. His output has more than earned him the title, but it's hard to classify. What do you mean? Hiruzen asked in curiosity. If you judge him by existing standards, he is talented but mostly gets by through his hard work. This isn't incorrect but misses the point. I believe to truly understand Naruto-kun you'll have to judge him against himself. His path won't be like anyone else's, convention won't have any relevance for him. A paradigm shift? Hiruzen asked rhetorically as he understood it. There were people who could excel in the most magnificent ways in what was known, like a child that can get perfect scores on any test. But there were those, the select few whom thought so differently that they simply weren't meant to be understood by existing criteria. They broke the mold. Someone like that could be hard to train, as finding out how to reach them would tax a sensei that desired to utilize the tried and true. It hurt Hiruzen to think this, but Naruto's neglect might have been the best thing for him. Because there was no one to tell him he was wrong or wasting time, Naruto's development could chart a course none had attempted before. He didn't know what was possible or impossible, and his natural Uzumaki stubbornness would ensure the boy wouldn't deem something impossible until he was satisfied it was so. His stunningly large chakra capacity, ever increasing according to the village's censor corp, meant Naruto could do things at a much younger age than almost any before him. Throw in shadow clones and the boy's potential was bordering on infinite. Only hindered by time and imagination, it was a scary prospect. No way I could pry a specific jutsu out of you. Sorry, Hokage-sama, but it falls under clan jutsu until Naruto teaches another. No hints? I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. That's fine, Weasel. Is there anything else for you to report? He asked, and saw Itachi shake his head no. So, nothing that would give me pause? The Hokage asked. Nothing that is outwardly sinister, Hokage-sama. What do you mean by that, Itachi? We've accepted she is interested in Naruto and potentially grooming him for something. The only question was what. I believe she may be shaping him into her ideal paramour. Itachi answered dryly and saw the disturbance in the Sandaime's face. A what? He said in disbelief. Paramour. Her future lover, Hokage-sama. I know what a paramour is, child, Hiruzen said dismissively. His mind now elsewhere as he wondered what his vile student had planned. Did she want a repeat of past events, a long-term seduction of Naruto only to wound him so severely he too turns toward the darkness? Minato's son labeled a traitor and using all of his skill and power to attack the leaf? That would be bad, beyond bad. But it would be a fitting revenge for two of the men that denied her the dream of being Hokage. To twist the hidden prince of the village so much he becomes its greatest enemy. He had to get her away from him, that had always been clear. There were but so many ways to do that. With the upcoming assault on Ame, maybe he could arrange for her not to survive, but if that failed he'd damn himself. Or if she were prepared and left word to Naruto he'd believe her without question. Once again, she was so far ahead of him, the game was half over before he realized he was playing. He wanted to admonish himself and his diminishing prowess but needed to focus. She could not be allowed to break Naruto. The boy was meant for great things. He has the drive to become something special. Hiruzen knew that a lot of Naruto's loss of love for Konoha was because of him, the one person he trusted. He always assumed he could make the boy understand without being truthful, with kind words and ambiguous statements. That wasn't the case and he'd never mend the relationship, he had to accept that. But he did love and value Naruto, even if past actions would argue otherwise. He couldn't allow him to turn toward the darkness, her darkness. That he helped cultivate. A seed having borne fruit and looking to seed the earth again. A cycle of his own creation, built on selfishness and arrogance. He couldn't let that be his legacy, the coda to his long life. He was a flawed man but not an evil one. He'd sought peace when possible, lived to protect the king of the village. His positives were greater than his failings. He'd save Naruto from her. Thank you, Weasel, you are dismissed. The ANBU wasted no time departing. Hiruzen then spoke to the ANBU still in his office. Please retrieve Anko Mitarashi, he ordered. He didn't like what he was about to do, nor that he'd be playing on Anko's hatred, but if he could get another woman to turn Naruto's head before Orochimaru could ever sink her fangs into him, then her plan would be for naught. Naruto would only hate him more for the manipulation, but it was for the best. The boy didn't understand how truly evil she was. Ino was being troublesome. Almost everyone was today. He didn't care for this annual get-together, a celebration of the long-standing alliance between the three clans. It was too much, too many people, too much interaction. As the heir, it was expected of him, but it was a mind-numbing waste of time, and yet he had little to no choice. He accepted it, but couldn't people try to not be annoying? And what was with the sudden interest in his teammate anyway? Stop ignoring me, Shika! Don't call me Shika, troublesome blonde. You let Naruto call you Shika. And that would be between him and I. Fine, be that way. I was just trying to learn more about your teammate. Yeah, and I'm curious as to why. Why the sudden interest, Ino? What do you really want? Because if this is just about gossip, then you should drop it. It isn't about that. Not anymore, she thought. When we were at the academy, I told Sakura not to be his friend because he was bad. We were only 6 and I was going off what everyone said. I didn't know if it was true, but I thought I was doing the right thing. Why would I care about this? Because he does. I tried to talk to the new girls in his clan and they knew me as the girl that chased his friend away and wouldn't even entertain talking to me beyond that. Okay, so then there's nothing to do, Shikamaru said. He knew Naruto likely didn't care, the anecdote more of a reference point than anything else, but it wasn't his job to tell her that, nor did he really see any benefit to helping her. Ino, frankly, was selfish, vain, and self-centered. She wrote Naruto off without knowing him and hadn't become interested until he was acknowledged as a clan heir. Shikamaru knew Naruto had a low opinion of a lot of Konoha's residents, and knew why. He couldn't blame his teammate but also wouldn't encourage it. Ino being nakedly two-faced would only be another example to add to the multitude. But I want to apologize, to start over. Shikamaru sighed. He had to be direct. Ino wouldn't get subtle, nor would she be led to a conclusion. It had to be blatant. Why? You didn't care when we formed our teams, you believed he was a loser with practically no evidence. Even when I told you that was wrong, you didn't believe me. But now that he's a clan heir and shown some skills, you want to make up? Just leave him alone, Ino. There will be plenty of people here. No reason to bother someone you wanted nothing to do with up to 5 minutes ago. So that's it. I can't change? Can't try to make things right? No, because you haven't changed. Which is fine, no one cares, but don't make this out to be something it isn't. That's just too troublesome. Wow, way to be a friend, Shikamaru, Ino said in a huff. We're friends? Shikamaru asked, surprised Ino thought they were. Of course we are, we've known each other since forever. That doesn't make us friends. This is such a drag. Fine then, Shikamaru. Since I'm so horrible I won't bother you, happy? Ino responded, hands on her hips. Not really. Asshole. You'll get over it. Ino wanted to respond but saw 2 figures approaching Shikamaru and her, his teammates. Shino was dressed like the stereotypical Aburame, large jacket, black pants and shades. Naruto was wearing a red, long-sleeved, V-neck shirt with black pants and had his hair pulled back in a loose bun. She had to admit the oft-maligned man bun worked on him. Hi, Shika, Naruto said with a wave and then peered around him to see Ino there. Hi, Ino-san. Troublesome. Hello, Naruto-san. Shino, she greeted, a little taken aback at his cheerfulness. Naruto-san, can I speak to you for a moment? Sure, he responded and followed her away from his teammates. Seeing her look conflicted caused him to drop the formalities. What can I do for you, Ino? I want to apologize, Naruto, for telling Sakura not to be your friend. It was cruel, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I'm sorry. Oh, has that been bothering you? Of course I forgive you, we were little then. Really? Yeah. You don't think I'd hold a grudge from something a 6-year-old did to me, did ya? Naruto asked with a grin. I wasn't sure, she said and felt much better. Well, I'm going to let you get back to Shikamaru, thanks Naruto. Ino spoke, walking away. No problem. Naruto called back, heading over to Shikamaru and Shino. Did you resolve your business with her? Yeah, but it was weird. Anyway, how are you guys? I am well, Naruto-san. How was your mission to Suna? Fine. Fought a little, ate a little, made some friends. Of course you did. Shikamaru muttered, causing Naruto to laugh. The trio prepared them some food and found a place away from the crowds, talking about their training, missions, and Shikamaru's long list of complaints. So, I have to get a new vest because of you, troublesome redhead. You could use a tighter fit anyway, you should fire your tailor, Shika. I know a guy. Shino offered helpfully, with Naruto giving him the thumbs up. See, Shino even knows a guy. Naruto paused to digest Shino's words before exploding. Why don't I know any guys? I won't let you get ahead of me, Aburame. But I already am. Why? As you have already stated, you have no guys. I have plenty and therefore will win. Are we really talking about this? Is this really happening? I must request you be silent, Shikamaru-san, as Naruto-san is on the cusp of admitting his defeat. I admit nothing. Just you wait, I'll have guys and they will be of a superior quality than your guys. This argument is stupid. You both have to realize this. Shikamaru said and saw that neither of them were paying attention. Hey, you troublesome teammates, don't ignore me. You both always get into these weird competitions that don't matter. He started it / it was started by him, they both said. Anyone else would form a sweat drop, but even Shikamaru's sweat thought it was too troublesome. Can we get back to the topic at hand? No, Shikamaru-san, we cannot. Not until Naruto-san once again acknowledges his defeat. You cheated last time to bail. And the time before that? The challenge was ambiguous, Naruto said, animatedly, hair flying in all directions. Troublesome, you submitted the challenge. How could you confuse yourself? Quite easily, I imagine, Shino answered with the barest hint of amusement. Aburame with the dagger. You're both bastards, you know that? What's that? I can't hear you from down there, Shikamaru retorted through yawns. Shika, you're lying down. Height doesn't even matter when you're lying down. Shino, you hear something? It sounds akin to a girlish shriek. Why? Because before a boy's balls drop they may have a high-pitched voice. Oh, so that's how you want to play it? Fine. I'm throwing a water whip party and you're both invited, Naruto said, eyes all white and hair formed into nine-tail-like formations. He instantly formed the water whips and gave chase to his teammates. May have pushed it too far this time, Shino. And running is so troublesome, Shikamaru observed while dodging Naruto's whips. Such is the price of victory, Shikamaru-san, Shino replied, narrowly avoiding a whip himself. Troublesome. It was late and he wanted to go home. He'd had a full and stressful day. It was always at this time he wondered if he should just give Tsunade the seat and be done with it. He could still shepherd them through the Ama assault while ceding the day-to-day work to her. She might not like it, might fight tooth and nail, but it'd be worth it to get out of that seat. He wanted to go home, but fortune was not on his side. Have you lost the rest of that fool mind of yours, Hiruzen? Koharu, ignoring that I'm still the Hokage, what would lead you to talk to me like this? You assigning Anko a mission she, and I quote, is guaranteed to leave me gutted and rotting in an unmarked grave. Anko was being a bit hyperbolic. Besides, I'm sure you both agree with me that we can't let Orochimaru tame Naruto-kun. She can't be allowed to foster darkness within Minato's boy. Oh, he's Minato's boy now? And we actually take that into account? We don't need to have that argument tonight, Koharu, Hamura said, though he too disliked Hiruzen manipulated them. They didn't want to deny Naruto his heritage, but were also concerned about his lack of protection and the wave of assassins that may come after Minato's legacy. To know that wasn't Hiruzen's only motivation offended both of them, but they'd yet to address it. There seemed to always be something more important to handle. Fine, we won't do that tonight, but Hiruzen, you are making a mistake. And worse yet, you're being obvious and sexist. Seeing his confused face, Koharu continues. Anko is one of our best kunoichi, so you assign her a mission to fuck a child? You would never assign Kakashi to screw a 12-year-old girl, and we all know that. I didn't order her to have sex. Seduction doesn't have to end in sex. Even if she just made him fall in love, it'd be enough. Did she tell you why I wanted her to do it? Yes, and you're being irrational. Even if she did have designs on Naruto, that's not illegal, and we don't act against our shinobi without evidence of wrongdoing. We aren't Danzo, Hamura answered. Besides, why are you so convinced that she must have ill intentions for Naruto? Why bother coming back here, giving us full access to her own hidden village if she has some dastardly plan? She may be arrogant, all of your students are, but she's not stupid, so why make this unnecessarily difficult? God knows, Naruto had more than enough incentive to leave the village. She wouldn't have had to try hard to induce him to do so. Because it would be her ultimate revenge against Minato and is just the sick kind of poetic she likes. Hiruzen defended but saw Koharu wasn't convinced, but Hamura understood the man's words. Koharu took notice of Hamura's expression and realized she was out of the loop. What aren't you telling me? Hiruzen breathed in deeply before releasing it with a sigh. For a brief period, Orochimaru and I were having an affair. I sent her to Danzo as a means of ending it, as an attempt to save my marriage and a way of dealing with the guilt of coercing her into getting an abortion. Hiruzen didn't have to wait long for the slap that greeted his confession. So you're one of them? I thought better of you, Hiruzen. I thought you had more integrity and discipline than that. I'm sorry I disappointed you, but nothing can change what happened, and it can't be used as a reason to turn a blind eye to her actions. No, but it does add context. I watched that girl grow up, her and Tsunade both. While not a direct sensei, I was proud to have helped in molding them into the stellar kunoichi they became. It hurt me just as much as you when she turned bad. It never made complete sense. She had darkness, she could be sadistic, but she always had control. Always. And then out of nowhere she becomes a monster? It never added up until now. She and in turn the village paid for your wandering dick, Ichiro-san. Yes, it has, and I want to rectify that. Don't you see why I need to limit her influence, all of her influence on him? I see an old man overreacting. Or do you just not like Naruto potentially getting something that was once yours? I'm not that crass, Koharu. This isn't about some lingering possessiveness. Maybe not, but we don't see the wisdom in assigning Anko this mission. If you had more evidence, or even a better argument, but her just being blindly spiteful won't do. And as one of the daimyo's stipulations, you know we can overrule you if we both agree. We do, Hiruzen, this mission is cancelled. Hamura voiced. You're both making a mistake. Only time will tell, but Hiruzen, did you ever stop to consider that maybe Naruto could be a good influence on her? Maybe bring back the loyal kunoichi she used to be? Koharu asked. If he were older? Maybe, but he's still a child in many respects. And that child rallied a nation to fight for itself. He might surprise you, they both may if you give them a chance, she said as both advisors left, leaving the longest-serving Hokage to his own thoughts. But try as he may, he simply couldn't picture a version of this where Naruto didn't turn out for the worst. Chapter 7, Exhibit C. The two female Sannin sat in an ornate study. Bookshelves up to the ceiling, fine woodworking throughout the office with jade accents. A well-designed and maintained office, fitting for one of the shinobi elders and former student of Tobarama Senju. I didn't think you could wake up this early, Orochimaru said. I don't want to be up this early, Tsunade responded. Besides, I haven't done anything, so I have no idea as to why I'm even here. Maybe she wants an audience, Orochimaru pondered. You are due for an ass reaming, so it's a possibility, Tsunade voiced with a slight grin. And you're not? I basically just retired. Our situations are different. I see you two still squabble like schoolgirls. A third voice spoke from behind them. Koharu requested their presence at her estate at 7 in the morning, sending out the notice as soon as she left Hiruzen's office. Clearly, she'd been left out of some major events and wanted to get something straight. She had taken on a role for Tsunade and Orochimaru similar to what Mito-sama had done for her, the prodigious Uzumaki not willing to let Koharu be a weak link on her team. It was a tradition she'd hoped would carry through, but wars and other tragedies had seemed to remove all she would select for the position, the last being Kushina. But it was not to be. However, her original girls were back, so maybe it could be salvaged. First, however, everything would need to be brought out in the open. No more secrets, and no more lies. Thank you for coming so early. I'm happy to see you both. It's good to see you as well, Tsunade replied. Is it? Because you've been back for nearly 2 months and I've yet to see you, either of you, outside of that initial meeting. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were avoiding me. I've been busy with hospital duties and my own training, Tsunade quickly answered. I figured you wouldn't want to see me, Orochimaru said simply, her voice betraying no emotion. I should cane you both. Tsunade, you're never that busy. And you, of course I'd want to see you, girl. Why didn't you tell me what was happening between Hiruzen and you? Why didn't you come to me? I wouldn't have during the affair, and afterward, what was I to say? It was so cliché as to not merit further attention. It did. The affair was wrong, you both were, but Hiruzen was more so. He was your sensei and your superior and had no business in engaging in such activities. And what he requested of you? If you told me earlier, I'd been in a better condition to do more than slap him. You slapped sensei? Tsunade asked in mild surprise. Of course I did. He knew better. This could have been prevented. You knowing doesn't change anything. Of course it does. It doesn't justify what you did, but it does add context. We worked hard so you'd have a firm control over your impulses, and for years you did. However, being emotionally distraught would surely affect said control, and with Tsunade gone, you needed someone else to help keep the line. It clearly wasn't going to be Danzo, and if that man were still alive, I'd shave layers from his bones. Koharu said the last part in disgust. I wasn't distraught. I'm not what you think I am. Clearly, it was always going to happen, and I could only pretend for so long. I'm a lot of things, most of them bad, but I won't be reduced to some heartbroken little girl. And yet, that's exactly what you were. It doesn't make you weak to have cared for him nor anyone else you may grow to care about in the future. Koharu argued and saw Orochimaru narrow her eyes. Hiruzen suspects, and was going to send Anko to interfere. Thankfully, she had enough sense to come to me, though it was mostly because she was sure you'd kill her. Smart girl, Orochimaru muttered, not enjoying feeling like a child in front of the elder kunoichi. Wait, Orochi is interested in someone? Who? This is not a gossip circle, Orochimaru protested. If that isn't confirmation, I don't know what is, So, who's the lucky guy? Anyone I know? Why did you have to bring this up in front of her? You know how sappy she gets, Orochimaru said to Koharu, causing Tsunade to look affronted. If you'd come visit me once in a while, I wouldn't have to address everything at once. This is really your own fault, Koharu retorted, though matriarchal shaming wasn't the entire reason. And Tsunade, wipe that look off your face. You're as sappy as they come, you just hide it under a veneer of bitterness. Also, use that keen intellect if you want to know, the list isn't that long, she finished, waving off Orochimaru's glare. Tsunade did as suggested and did use her intellect. She knew Orochimaru wasn't around that many people. Assuming the target was male reduced the number even further. Really, outside of Kabuto and the Kaguya, both seemingly too submissive for her, she spent the significant part of her time with. Got a thing for redheads, do you? She asked smugly. True, he was too young now, and by conventional ethics calling dibs on a child would be looked down upon, but she didn't have a problem with it once he was older. Shut up. Orochimaru didn't get embarrassed ever, but she was not enjoying this, at all. She didn't really care who knew she had designs on Naruto, nor was she shamed by being drawn to someone so much younger than herself. But she felt uncomfortably vulnerable around these two, the two people that knew her best and always accepted her, even when she'd done things to push them away. She could never intimidate them, scare them, or anything else. Tsunade even went so far as to tease her occasionally. And unlike Jiraiya's insults, which were presented as playful but always had an undercurrent of derisive jealousy, Tsunade's was always meant to be inclusive. She cared about them, and what they thought. That's why she was uncomfortable with their judgment, even if it were ultimately positive and accepting. If it hadn't been, would she have changed? Doubt herself? No to the former, possibly yes to the latter, and she didn't like that. Doubt and indecision slowed one down, made them falter. Orochimaru was pulled from her thoughts when Tsunade spoke. What? He's a cutie now, and I'd imagine he'd mature into a fine young man. I agree. Well, I wasn't asking for your permission. I think that's as close to a thanks for the support as we're going to get, Tsunade replied, grinning, enjoying seeing her friend opening up again. But soon, the grin faded when something occurred to her, causing her to scowl. The other two women were discomforted by the change in her emotions. Sensei was going to have Anko seduce Naruto? Yes, Koharu answered. A sitting Hokage was going to attempt to directly interfere in internal clan politics? I didn't even think of that. Hamura hadn't either. Hiruzen really had been slipping. If the other clans got wind of him trying to, possibly, plant a matriarch into a clan, one he'd already stolen from, it could lead to widespread distrust. It could be portrayed as Hiruzen attempting to gain further access to the Uzumaki funds by have a sympathetic party close to the clan head, or even a long-term embezzlement scheme. If nothing else, it was tearing down the laws and customs that gave clans a degree of autonomy. Had this gone through and it was ever discovered, Hiruzen would have been further disgraced. An even larger blight on an otherwise stellar dual tenure. Orochi-chan, I know you hate him. I understand why, but I am going to ask you drop this as a personal favor to me. I'd be lying if I said I'd drop it completely, and I won't lie to you. However, the value it has currently is rather low. If he doesn't try anything like this again, then it can stay locked away. I can live with that, and I'll inform Hiruzen. Now, as much fun as it is to talk about your courtship and gild both you girls, I did have another reason to call you here. As you both know, I've acted as something of a mentor for many of the village's kunoichi, starting with you two. I've enjoyed it and have been proud to do so, but my time is coming to an end. I'm old and the younger generations need new voices and influences. I'd like you two to take up that role. I won't be taking on a full-time student again. Once I got over my issues, I poured all I had into training Shizun. I'm not asking you to take on another apprentice Tsunade, just like you weren't mine. Just be available, share your knowledge and experiences. You know the double standards that exist, how dismissive people are of kunoichi. But fangirls are going to ruin us all, Tsunade said in mock horror, causing all three women to laugh. Fine, I'll see what I can do. I'm already doing something similar with our medical corp. And you? What about me? If they aren't terrified of me, they certainly don't trust me. Besides, I've done that enough in my own village. 2 of which have joined Konoha. Yes, the additional Uzumaki. You may have a point, but you need to make amends to Anko. That isn't going to happen, Orochimaru said dryly. And yet it must. Her hatred of you and fear of that seal is holding her back. Fine, you insufferable old woman. Is there anything else you want? Meh, to be young again. I might take a ride on a certain redhead myself, Koharu said, snickering at the stunned faces of the two Sannin before her. Can I just say, officially, I don't want to do this? the Nara genius complained from the clearing of the training grounds. That's fine, Shikamaru. But as you rarely want to do anything, the announcement lacks potency. Kurenai responded. Besides, this will be good for you to assess your relative level. The same goes for the rest of you. The ruby-eyed Jounin informed her team. As we may be assigned higher-rank solo missions, it is important to know how to disable teams while having enough energy to escape or finish our tasks. Whereas the participating genin teams should be able to subdue a single rookie Chunin. Logic would dictate whatever the outcome, it will demonstrate areas of improvement for all. Yeah, except a certain troublesome redhead blows a hole in the entire balance. I haven't even done anything yet. But you will / you always do / give it time. Were the responses for his team, causing a depression cloud to form over his head. You guys are so mean to me. Don't be like that, Naruto-kun, Kurenai said, rubbing the boy's head and earning a mild blush. But Shikamaru raises a good point. While technically you're a rookie Chunin, we all know that isn't really the case. So the other Jounin-sensei and I came up with some restrictions to avoid you appending the whole deal. Fine, what are they? No shadow and few in clones. No ninjutsu above B rank, and no overloading your lesser rank jutsu to achieve similar effects. Also, no kenjutsu. Now, I officially don't want to do this. Shino isn't complaining. I relish the opportunity. To watch their naive confidence get crushed by my dominance. Nothing is more pure than that, sensei. Okay, Kurenai said before fishing out 3 scrolls, 1 colored black, 1 green and 1 orange, handing her students 1 each. Now go to your assigned locations as we'll begin soon. And Shikamaru, if you just give up and hand over your scroll, you'll have an all-out spar with Naruto as punishment. Shikamaru just took his scroll and marched off, cursing his fate of being partnered with a confounding woman and a troublesome Uzumaki. The other 2 Chunin departed as well while Kurenai simply waited for the other teams to arrive. It was about 30 minutes, as even Kakashi arrived on time. Asuma spoke first. Okay, teams, we're doing a joint training exercise. Each member of Team Kurenai has a scroll in which you are to retrieve. They are stationed in 3 separate locations and cannot leave the general area. You may attempt to gain the scrolls through any means, short of lethal or maiming blows. However, if you are defeated by the Chunin, you cannot attempt to attack them again. But if another team has the scroll, we can go after them? Asked Neji. Yes. You get 1 attempt at the Chunin, but as long as you can still fight, you can try to steal it from any of the teams. The first team to get all the scrolls, or have the most by the end of the time limit, wins. You are to treat this like a real mission, meaning if any member of my team is able to put you in a position where you'd flee or surrender, then you've failed and must move on. If you push on in those circumstances because this isn't real, then regardless of if you get the scroll, you will have failed. Kurenai added. You all have time to plan and strategize. The time starts when the first team leaves the clearing, but be warned, that gives Shino, Shikamaru and Naruto time to trap and fortify their positions, so delaying may not be to your advantage. Kakashi continued and the shunshined away. The other Jounin did so as well as the 3 genin teams separated. What do you think, Neji? Asked Tenten. I say we go after the Uzumaki. I can see through his traps and we can finally settle the score. Neji answered, clenching his prosthetic arm. Yes, let's engage in a most youthful fight and stoke our flames to new heights. After that, should we just wait to see if any of the other teams gain a scroll and go after them? Tenten finished and Team 9 was content with their plan. I think we should go after Shikamaru. He's so lazy he'll barely put up a fight, Ino suggested. But he's really smart, he might have traps set or any number of things, Chuji added. Nah, he's too lazy for that. Besides, we can overwhelm him fast and then head over to whoever is closest to Shikamaru. And then hide after that. Each team has a tracker, Ino-san. Hiding won't be easy and with 2 scrolls we'll be the targets, Hinata added. Then what should we do, Hinata? Asked Chuji. Stay here. Each team, at some point, is going to try to take a scroll from another team, hoping a member of Team Kurenai has tired them out so most of the work is done. If we all chase after a scroll, we'll all be depleted and then depleted further when we fight. If we let the 2 combat teams go after a scroll and then fight each other, then they'll be weakened and we can swoop in. Or they ignore each other and go after 2 Chunin each, the results are similar. We should be the last people they fight, the last team to fight. So, just wait. That's your plan. Yes, Ino-san, that is my plan. I like it, Choji said. I say we target Shino. My Katon Jutsu are a natural enemy to his insects, and the Sharingan will allow me to see them. Kiba you can track and Sakura can be long-distance support if we need it. And after, assuming we beat Shino? Asked Kiba. We rest if need be and then go after Naruto. I assume Team 9 is going after him first for revenge. Assuming they have a drawn-out fight, it'll leave some weakened targets for us. We get the second scroll and then head to the clearing, playing defense with what we have. What if Team 9 is still fresh? They'll be hard to beat, Kiba added. It's a gamble, but with the Nara's shadow jutsu there is a chance one of us would be captured, and if we are, we lose. Team 9 was the first to take off, starting the timer on the exercise. Neji activated his Byakugan and ran toward the Uzumaki. He saw the chakra-infused Fuin jutsu and guided his team through the traps set in the wooded area. He avoided the chakraless traps as well. Team 9 were progressing well until Tenten stepped on a patch of earth that sunk, setting off a kunai trap. The projectiles flew toward the team at a rapid pace, each taking to the trees to avoid them. This set off another set of pressure traps as not just kunai but a powdery substance was released as well. Neji managed to avoid the powder, but his teammates did not. However, either Tenten nor Lee felt any differently, so they continued on, at a much slower pace. It frustrated them, having to take their time and check thoroughly for even the slightest inconsistency. The care in which they were having to move was wearing on their patience, especially Lee, as he preferred to charge ahead at obstacles. It only made his flames of youth burn hotter. After 15 minutes of entering the wood area, the team made it toward another clearing and saw Naruto waiting for them. Neji relayed that the Uzumaki hadn't moved since the exercise started, as if he were waiting to face them head-on. All of Team 9 liked that and took their positions for their attack formation. Tenten began by throwing a barrage of kunai at Naruto. He responded by performing a series of hand seals and performed the wind-style, wind wall jutsu, halting the kunai. Neji and Lee were already in motion, assuming Naruto would have to move, but even after the effects of the jutsu they continued on, prepared to attack. Naruto threw a right uncharged kunai toward Neji, who dodged it easily, but the brief pause allowed Naruto time to perform another jutsu, water-style, gummy swamp jutsu, one of Naruto's first usable, original jutsu. He spits out a large glob of sticky goo, creating a trap. Lee's momentum carried him right into the jutsu, ending his forward charge. Neji decided to continue onward, believing that between Tenten and he, the Hyuga was in the best position to mount an offensive. After her experience in the Chunin exams, Tenten was reluctant to face a futon user, not having created counters yet. She watched Lee struggling to free himself, and went to aid her boisterous teammate. Neji finally closed the distance and began attacking, his Byakugan blazing intensely. He knew he couldn't kill the Uzumaki, but if he could severely hurt him, Neji would be satisfied, for now. Naruto was not unprepared for Neji's frontal attack, having retrieved 2 kunai from his holster. When it appeared Neji showed little concern for the knives, likely believing they'd never touch him, Naruto decided to fix that assumption by channeling supersonic chakra into them, extending their reach. Neji saw the manipulation and easily deduced he was at great risk if he kept being overly aggressive. He calmed himself but continued the pressure, simply more focused and controlled. The chakra-infused knives managed a few nicks, but nothing deep to draw much blood, and Neji was thankful for his training with Tenten, as the small cuts did nothing to deter him. He eventually got the timing and attack/counter patterns of the Uzumaki and laid a trap, attacking in such a way that Naruto left his chest open for a palm strike. Neji took full advantage of the opening, his chakra-infused palm speeding toward Naruto, ill intent rolling off Neji. Neji struck but was unhappy as he saw Naruto replace himself with a log. He almost missed the ceiling array on the log but caught it in enough time to perform a kaiten. If it were a normal exploding tag, the kaiten would have offered the necessary protection. But it wasn't, it was a flash bang array. Neji's initial kaiten saved him from the wood splinters and even the glaring flash, but the sphere of chakra did not prevent the high-pitched sound from reaching his ears. This caused him to falter and fall to the ground, the sonic assault destabilizing him. Neji felt a hand grab him from underground, and a moment later his body went rigid, he was unable to move. Naruto emerged from the ground, ready to end it, but had to move away from Neji as Lee was on the attack once more. Seeing Neji hurt, Lee decided to race toward his teammate, and it was fortunate he did, as it allowed him to interrupt Naruto before he could detain Neji. In a blur he was in front of Naruto, aiming a punch toward the smaller Chunin. Naruto dodged the punch and slapped it away. Lee responded with a kick, aimed at Naruto's midsection. Naruto met the kick with the bottom of his foot, and then used chakra to stick to Lee's leg. Taken off guard, Lee didn't fight Naruto when he forced his leg down to the ground and then into the ground as Lee felt his foot sink. Before he could begin to understand what just happened, which was really just basic earth manipulation, Naruto hit Lee in the chin with a jab. The right chakra augmenting his speed allowed Naruto to multiple the force of the jab, and Lee was knocked out. Putting a kunai to Lee's throat and using the incapacitated boy as a shield, the recently promoted Chunin spoke. "Drop all of your weapons, admit defeat, or I'll slit his throat," he said in an even tone. Tenten looked upon her teammates. Neji couldn't move and Lee was at the bastard's mercy. She hung her head. Team 7 wasted no time taking off toward Shino when Team 9 departed. Kiba was taking the lead as he was tracking Shino by scent. Sakura was behind him and Sasuke took the rear, making sure to avoid any of Shino's Kikaichu that he may have left behind. As they got closer to Shino's location, Kiba tripped a wire which triggered a series of pepper bombs being unleashed from above. The instant the pepper concoction spread, Kiba had a coughing and wheezing fit, hard enough to throw Akamaru off of him. The bombs acted as an irritant to not only Kiba's sense of smell but to Sasuke's eyes. The Uchiha didn't quite close them fast enough, which caused a burning sensation, one that the other members of Team 7 were experiencing as well. Immediately they cleansed their eyes with their water canteens and prepared to continue on. Kiba went to retrieve Akamaru, who seemed stunned from being tossed. When Kiba picked up Akamaru, the dog dissolved into a mass of Kikaichu and latched onto Kiba. The Inuzuka attempted to get the insects off him by rolling around and even hitting himself, but it was for naught as soon he was drained and passed out from chakra loss. Sasuke heard a gasp and turned around to see Shino had Sakura, a sai pointed toward her midsection. With his Sharingan activated, he saw it was the real one, not a clone. He was frustrated his team had been so easily defeated by tricks. He didn't force Shino to make his ultimatum, throwing down his weapons, and saw the Aburaim nod in approval. A insect clone brought a subdued Akamaru out from behind Sasuke and Shino left via Shunshin. Sasuke picked up Kiba and Sakura carried Akamaru as Team 7 departed from the area, never realizing they had some extra passengers with them. Hinata watched both teams struggle and ultimately fail, each diminished in their scuffles. She realized this would be the perfect opportunity to neutralize her competition before going for the scrolls. She had the beginnings of a plan, but a crucial element depended on Ino. The Yamanaka had improved since the exams, but this wasn't an easy task. Change in plans. Both teams failed to obtain a scroll and are weakened. I say we take out the teams and then go after the scrolls ourselves. I'll take Uzumaki-kun while you both go after Shikamaru. Why Shikamaru? And why would you go after Naruto alone? Asked Ino. Because Shikamaru-kun likely can't hold both of you and given his general laziness won't want an extended fight. Shino-kun is prepared, had an easier fight than Uzumaki-kun, and will fight harder than Shikamaru-kun. I'll go alone because my skills match up to his, and since he's already tired it'll be easy to defeat him. Hinata lied believably. What's the plan? Asked Choji. Team 7 and 9 are on their way back. Shino-kun has hidden some of his Kikaichu on Team 7, likely to attack Team 9, though I have no idea how he'll direct them. When they do, I'll neutralize Team 9 while Ino will neutralize Sasuke-san with her jutsu. Knock out Sakura and then I'll do the same to Sasuke-san's body. Sounds like a good idea, Ino said with a smile, and Choji agreed. Hinata waited for the two teams to get closer before giving them the signal, but once she did, the team moved silently until Hinata signaled they should stop. Team 10 watched the other teams watch each other warily, but the respective leaders deduced neither managed to retrieve a scroll. The question was, who would go where next? If they were both going to the Nara, they'd have a fight on their hands anyway. If one team was going to wait while the other made a second attempt, they might as well try to take the other team out. Team 7 was a person down, and with Lee having been recently knocked out he wasn't at full capacity, but Team 9 had a distinct advantage. The stare down was intense, as Sasuke and Neji thought about what to do, but each seemed to conclude a negotiation was needed as both approached each other. Hinata activated her Byakugan to see what was being said amongst the two. She was not surprised when Sasuke agreed to allow Neji and company to go after the Nara in exchange for holding hostilities. Hinata smiled when the Kikaichu, unnoticed by either, slowly attached themselves to Neji. He felt the drain immediately and assumed it was the work of Sasuke. Hinata wasted no time and launched two poison saban from her wrists, each one hitting Tenten and Lee. Since the paralytic was fast-acting, both were down in seconds. Neji attempted to attack Sasuke, but the constant drain of his chakra slowed him down, and Sasuke easily slipped the finger jab, choosing to create some distance, but even he started to feel drained. It was happening faster than he could understand. His vision was starting to darken, consciousness fading fast. The last thing he saw was Neji hitting the ground before he followed suit. Hinata, taking full advantage of her fortunate circumstance, fired another saman at Sakura, hitting the distracted girl and knocking her out. What the hell, Hinata, that was not the plan! Ino yelled, indignantly. Somehow, Shino-kun planted his Kikaichu on Sasuke-san and set them up to attack Neji and Sasuke-san both. It might not be safe to get close to them, Ino-san. Besides, now, all you have to do is get the scroll from Shikamaru-san. Good luck, the heiress said before darting off toward her target, unsealing a metallic compound bow and a quiver of arrows as she made her way through the path Team 9 took. She stopped to line up her shot. Naruto was sitting down, relaxed but not unaware. She pointed her bow, knocking her arrow. She held her breath for a moment, and released it slowly just as she released the projectile. It tore through the sky, weaving carefully between the trees headed toward her intended target. At the last moment he rolled out of the way and the arrow struck a tree behind him. Hinata was already on the move and released 3 more arrows. He created an earth wall to intercept them. The Hyuga heiress stayed in her new position, relieved she'd avoided any traps and couldn't use the arrow trajectories to guess her position. She knew his facility was shadow clones and wondered why he hadn't made any yet, as it would be an ideal way to find her location. She didn't have much time to consider as she watched him blur through hand signs and slam his hand on the ground before a sealing array appeared followed by chakra smoke. "Oni-chan?" the sleepy panther asked. Hinata fought down the urge to go cuddle with the cute summons. "Hi. I need your help. Can you track the scent on these arrows?" "Hi," the cub answered and appeared to have obtained her scent. Hinata braced herself. Moving too early or too late would put her in a bad position. What she was not prepared for was for the panther to merge with the shadow and disappear from her sight. Without delay, she decided movement was needed and narrowly avoided the swipe of a panther claw because of it. The panther cub was less cute now. Hinata decided active engagement, up close and personal, would be better than the hit and run tactics she'd utilized. She sped towards Naruto and took a swing at him with her bow, which he ducked. She followed up with a roundhouse. Naruto responded by dropping straight to the ground. Hinata had to jump in the air to avoid the panther again, twisting to not leave herself vulnerable. She was outflanked and knew it but wasn't going to give up. Hinata, having sealed her bow and arrows, sped toward Naruto again. She didn't fight in the traditional Hyuga manner, adopting sweeping motions instead of the jabs and thrusts the gentle fist is known for. She would often have to aim a strike at the cub to keep her honest but spent most of her time pressing Naruto. She went for a palm thrust, which he stopped and caught with both hands, one at the wrist and one at her elbow. Hinata was not deterred as she bent her middle and ring fingers down to pull at a trigger, unleashing more saban from her hidden launcher. Naruto avoided them, barely, but decided he'd been on the defensive long enough. He let Hinata close the distance again, but before she got into attack range she was ensconced in his chakra-infused hair while the cub jumped on her back. "You give?" he asked, and the heiress nodded. Naruto undid the jutsu, face still neutral. "So, you're an archer?" Hinata nodded again. "That is so cool. Databeo. How long have you been training? What can you do? How far can you shoot? What do your arrows do?" Hinata would be a bit taken back by his abrupt change if she hadn't watched him for so long, under orders. "Let's see, since I was 9. I'm pretty accurate and can take shots most would think impossible due to obstructions. 53 meters. They are arrows, Uzumaki-kun, they just do what arrows do. What about Fuinjutsu? Maybe some seals to add some additional features like flash bang or explosions or knockout gas or gloves." "Gloves?" Hinata asked with a quirked eyebrow. "Yeah, like boxing gloves to act as a bludgeon." "That doesn't sound very practical, Uzumaki-kun." Naruto laughed before agreeing. "I guess it doesn't. Sorry, my imagination gets away from me sometimes." Hinata giggles in response. "That's fine, almost none has shown as much enthusiasm for my interests as you just have." "Thank you." Naruto rubs the back of his head bashfully. "It's nothing. Sides, it's really cool. I was not expecting arrows. I do think some specialty arrows would really take things up a notch. Also, have you ever considered a Sanban launcher that was chakra-powered or had a seamless triggering mechanism? I have enough to know they don't exist." "What?" "They should," Naruto said, and he took out an empty scroll, a brush and some ink and started writing and doodling furiously. Hinata sat beside the Uzumaki and watched him work as he'd write down plans and cross them out only to write out some more. After several moments, it seemed he'd come to a stopping point. "If you'd like, Hinata-san, I could experiment some and see what comes of it." "I'd like that." "Awesome, Tabeo. What would you want your arrows to do?" Naruto asked, and Hinata contemplated for a moment. His initial suggestions, excluding the boxing glove arrow, were good, but surely she could come up with some herself. The two sat and chatted, trading ideas for the rest of the time until Kurenai showed up to signal time had elapsed, an hour later. Apparently, Ino and Choji were not able to get a scroll either. The Jounin put their heads together, each having witnessed some part of the exercise. Guy was the most displeased with his team, seeing they allowed a personal issue to overwhelm their thinking. He also saw that his team was too linear and inflexible. The powdery substance that was on them, they dismissed was a pheromone that caused Kikechu to become aggressive. Shibi used a similar tactic with his teammates, allowing them to bait enemies so he could attack them from far away. His team just assumed it did nothing or forgot about it entirely. Not good, especially if they would be fighting Ama Ninja. If he couldn't change or curb that, he wouldn't allow them to participate in the Ama assault. Kakashi was neither pleased nor displeased. His team operated as a unit. Sasuke had a sound plan but was simply outmaneuvered by the Aburame. He'd drill them on their tactics more, as they've witnessed what a superior plan can net. Asuma was satisfied with most of his team's performance. Hinata was acting as a leader and had a good plan. She even knew when to change things to take advantage of the situation. The plan to have Choji and Ino take on Shikamaru together was solid, but Choji's reluctance cost them in the end, giving Shikamaru enough time to detain Ino, forcing Choji to submit. Shikamaru used a loophole in the rules and kept both members there longer so they couldn't go after Shino nor Naruto. Guy said Hinata put up a good fight against Naruto, but being tag-teamed by his summons left her at a disadvantage she couldn't overcome. That was understandable. Training with a Sannin was bound to net some positive results even if he hadn't been ahead of them to begin with. However, turning the last hour into a date was not what he expected of Hinata. Kurenai was downright smug. Her boys kicked ass and took names. She didn't even bother to hide it. They may not have been the strongest genin team, but they were the best. Shikamaru and Shino were great at meticulous planning, leading their enemies to the conclusions they wanted, and their abilities had been tested to the max by Naruto. Why? Because he is a natural at counter-planning. If Shikamaru and Shino were elegant and precise, Naruto was like his namesake, a true maelstrom that would upend anything with a split-second decision they couldn't account for. They influenced each other and helped each other grow. And since no one got a scroll, she got to pocket $15,000 Rio. It was good to be Team 8. What is Naruto Uzumaki to you? Hiruzen repeated the question Koharu just asked him. It was an odd question, and it felt like a setup. What was Naruto to him? The obvious ones were Minato's son and Jinchuriki. Talented Chunin? Source of regret? Former surrogate grandchild? Once hope for the future? He didn't know what Koharu wanted with this question, and it seemed his face gave away his confusion. While you were thinking, did you list clan heir? She asked neutrally. No. And let's say Anko's mission would have been a complete success. Let's say they even got married, what would have happened? He would free of Orochimaru. Damn it, Hiruzen, think. Don't obsess, don't react, think. And think he did, as he was clearly missing a crucial piece of the puzzle until it hit him like a right unjutsu. Clan heir, as in clan business. As in you planting a matriarch in the clan you pilfered funds from. Do you realize how bad that could have been if it were ever found out you were even planning on doing such a thing? Koharu questioned. I overlooked it entirely. I've really lost my edge, haven't I? Age will do that. I overlooked it as well. Tsunade pointed it out for me, so at least I know she has the wits to sit in the chair. Hiruzen, she's back. She's not going anywhere. If she had some grandiose plan, maybe you could have unearthed it 10 years ago, but you won't now. All you're doing is making mistakes that could damage the position of Hokage long after you leave it. Hiruzen could only hang his head in shame. She was right about all of it. She has reason to hate me. And those reasons gave her the justification to become a monster. What if Naruto decides he gets to be a monster as well? They are different people. And if you don't want him to become a monster, don't give him reason to act as one. Besides, I've read Inoichi's reports. He'd leave before he'd take revenge. Our Hunter Nin would be most at risk. He has a team, he's making friends. Someone like him, he never needed much to tie him to the village. Hiruzen didn't bother to respond, hoping his former teammate was right. After nearly being set up by the Sandaime, Anko needed to be alone, and the one place she could ensure she'd be isolated was the Forest of Death. It felt good to cut loose when no one was watching, to mindlessly destroy things or just speed through the dense forest. It felt like home because it was a place that had no association with her former sensei. There was no taint. No one to judge, to glare at her in suspicion. She was free. So, as she making sport out of some ROUS, she was not pleased to see the one person she didn't want to see standing above, because she always stood above her. Was this it? Her sensei was finally going to end her? Why did she wait? To just make her suffer through years of ostracization? Why? Stop asking yourself so many questions when you don't have enough information to build any conclusions. You're just making yourself anxious and tense. If I were here to attack you, and I'm not, you've already given me an advantage. What do you want? To remove your seal, Orochimaru said plainly. That's not funny, Anko shouted. I'm not joking. If you aren't going to use it, there's no point to it being there. Do you want it gone or not? Of course I do. What do you want in exchange? Why do this now? Nothing, I want nothing from you. As for why now? It's not important. It's important to me. You aren't altruistic, you don't just do things for people out of the goodness of your heart. I'm losing my patience with you, Anko-chan. Do you want the seal removed or do you not? I do. Good. Now try not to scream too loudly, Orochimaru said before she blurred in front of Anko. The next thing Anko knew, she was indeed screaming quite loudly until she blacked out from the pain. Orochimaru caught her first apprentice with a frown on her face, hoping Anko would be able to handle the effects of removing the seal. Chapter 8 Blast. Her body felt heavy, every muscle felt strained, and even the idea of moving caused her pain. Her sheets were soaked through, but she was freezing, and the splitting headache caused the ringing in her ears. None of that compared to what she saw in her sleep. For years, Anko hated no one more than she hated her sensei. She detested everything about the woman, the embodiment of everything evil about their world. Now she simply wanted to kill herself as the 2 years of missing memory returned. She was there, by her side, taking part in the experiments, the torture, and the needless bloodletting. If Orochimaru told her to burn down a village, Anko would do it because her sensei told her to. It was just that simply, her obedience was just that unthinking, reflexive even. Even when she had misgivings, even when the things she did made her sick, she tried to hide it from Orochimaru. Anko never wanted her to think her apprentice couldn't keep up, didn't have the stomach for what was asked of her. But she did eventually reach her limit. When asked to prepare a small child for an experiment, Anko broke down. She became a quivering mass and struggled to get out apologies in between her sobs. Orochimaru smiled and patted the girl on her head, telling her she didn't have to do it. The next day, Anko received the cursed mark and remembered nothing else until she was found by a Konoha strike team some time later. She hated herself. Hated what she did. Hated why she did it. A small part of her even hated that her devotion wasn't appreciated but considered a detrimental feature. All she did to please that woman, and she didn't even care. Anko became a monster for a monster, and was abandoned because of it. It was distressing how much that realization hurt, that it was all for nothing. That Orochimaru valued someone so unlike her in the red-haired Uzumaki but disdained Anko. It was a sad joke, she was a sad joke, a perfect intersection of tragedy and farce. Not good enough to be her student. Not debased enough to be her disciple. Not even worthy of killing. Just some toy Orochimaru tired of playing with and then abandoned. Throughout her emotional turmoil, she wasn't unaware that someone was in, she assumed, her apartment. She simply was in too much pain to care. Besides, she knew who it was and wanted to prolong the hateful bitch's gloating. Are you going to pretend to be asleep for much longer, Anko-chan? I'd hoped you'd leave if I did, Anko said, forcing herself to sit upright against her headboard. Her bedroom was pretty basic, containing her bed draped in dark purple sheets, a metal and glass top nightstand to her left, and a chest of drawers on the right wall. Orochimaru was sitting at the end of her bed, keeping a keen eye on her former apprentice. So, is this your final joke? Let me hate you for years and then reveal I'm just like you. Anko spat, tired of the woman watching her so intently. If you've gotten your memories back, you know you aren't just like me. You were a little girl trying to please her sensei. I still did those things. Doesn't matter why I did them. I'm no better than you, and these people had reason to hate and reject me. They knew what I was. If that is who you were, you'd still do those things, but you don't. You didn't become like me, and in that area you bested me, Orochimaru said, and meant it. She realized she had taken advantage of Anko's admiration the same way Hiruzen had done to her. It was one of the few things she genuinely felt bad about. What do you mean? Anko asked, not understand what the Sannin meant. Let's just say there is more to Hiruzen Sarutobi than you know, and not all of it is good. Anko wanted to argue but reconsidered and let the matter drop. She was in too much pain for an unnecessary argument. Why did you remove the seal? Because I want to make amends, Anko. The violet-haired woman looked unconvinced. I've been told to make amends, but I agree. You've gone as far as you can with hating me as motivation. You may never forgive me, but seeing as how I'm not going anywhere, I'm hoping you can move on. Anko snorted and then grimaced in pain. She may hate the she-demon, but she was rational enough to admit said demon was right. She hadn't been advancing, and on a purely skill level she was no more closer to killing her former sensei as she was to sprouting wings and granting wishes. It's not like she's never contemplated it before, just moving on with her life, but there was an ache of injustice, scores unsettled that wouldn't allow her to. I can't make any promises. I've hated everything about you for so long, but it seems what you did allowed me to not hate myself. Be thankful for small mercies. I'd be thankful for this pain to end. Did it really have to hurt this much? Yes. Besides, you're strong, you'll manage. Your bedside manner sucks. Kukuku. Orochimaru left soon after. Whatever Anko and her relationship was to be, it'd take time, though she highly doubted it'd ever be more than a resigned acceptance. She could live with that, and Koharu couldn't claim she hadn't an effort. The woman got really unpleasant when she believed that. The snake Sannin decided to walk through the village. It was still quite early, the sun just peeking about the horizon. Not many people were out, but those that were seemed conflicted on how to treat her. She could see the fear they had, but there was also a layer of security. The villagers stood a little straighter because the legendary three had returned. If only they understood, she'd never make some grand effort to save a single one of them. Konoha had what she wanted, if remaining standing was the best path to her goals. If that should ever change, this place would burn, and she'd not spare one thought to their suffering. She shook her head when she noticed someone following her, poorly. As she made her way toward the last street before her residence said tag along finally appeared. A chunin, going by the vest with stringy, silvery chin-length hair. The mane looked familiar, but she really was drawing a blank. Orochimaru-sama, if we could have a word, the man requested. And what can I do for you today, Chunin-kun? She replied and saw the man bristle at the question and form a slight sneer. He recovered quickly to most, but to her experienced eyes, he might as well shout his emotions. Mizuki Orochimaru-sama. Oh, she thought. It was the Chunin fuck-up that couldn't even manage to do what she ordered Hinata to at a fraction of the age. It was a simple observe and report, as she wanted multiple sources on the Uzumaki heir. She knew he'd be easy to manipulate. He wore his insecurities for all to see. Jealous, frustrated, self-entitled. It was nothing to give him a prototype curse seal but withhold the means to activate it. Oh, of course. How could I forget, Mizuki-kun? How may I help you today? Well, your agent said if I helped you I'd one day be granted access to incredible power. Orochimaru had to suppress a sigh. This deeply uninteresting man was wasting her time she could be with Naruto-kun. He wasn't uninteresting. Even just sitting and reading, she could feel the ideas racing through his head and the palpable excitement at doing something new or finding a way to do an existing skill better. She idly wondered if she just killed this Chunin how many people would truly miss him. It would certainly be faster than this conversation. She formed a smile, a great show at how to project emotions you decidedly weren't feeling, as she was simply bored by this thing in front of her. Kukuku, I recall ordering you to keep an eye on a certain student. From my other operatives, I was told you were negligent, withholding instruction and other means to subtly sabotage his education. I just thought Kukuku. I did not order you to think, only obey. How can I reward you when you potentially derail my plans? You've failed, and it was due to factors outside of that pathetic academy. You didn't cause any real damage. But he's the QB, he nearly shouted. She actually had to blink at that. Did this fool actually believe he was the QB? Not even civilians believed he was the actual QB. This conversation just got too stupid for her to devote any further attention to. That's idiocy, and even if he were, I ordered you to chart his progress and report to me. You did not, so you get nothing, she replied simply, and Mizuki didn't bother to hide the sneer this time. I know things. I can tell Sandaime-sama how you gave me a curse seal and told me to spy on the QB brat. Kukuku, and I'll tell him I gave it to you after you suffocated a comrade. Nothing will happen to me and you'll be executed. Which would save me the trouble of doing it myself, so please, Mizuki-kun, go run and tattle. She simply walked away after that. Nothing more needed to be said. The Chunin instructor just stood there in silent fury at being dismissed and denied what he was owed. He promised he'd get her back one of these days. Orochimaru continued back to her residence, fully aware the idiot Chunin was likely making plans of revenge. She'd let him try, if for no other reason than the potential entertainment value. One must fend off boredom whenever they can. When she returned, she was not at all surprised to see her student out back. He was in a red shirt with a white spiral on the back, black pants and sandals to match. Him being surrounded by 10 shadow clones, each writing or sketching ideas, was also not unique. However, this, she assumed, original squinting in frustration or extreme concentration was. She surmised it had to do with the sphere of water above his head. She could see the beads of sweat on his forehead as he held his hands in the ram sign, breathing slowly. His concentration was broken when one clone shouted, "Boss!" to get his attention, causing the condensed water to fall on his head, drenching him. The offending clone dispelled instantly, likely preferring it to more forceful alternative. Stupid clone. Stupid night aim. Stupid water manipulation. It couldn't have just been a high water affinity. Outside of primary and secondary, strength of affinities might not even be a thing. Tibeo. Naruto had, for some time, attempted to recreate the night aim's method of water manipulation. He progressed to where he could feel the water in the air, and even draw some of it to him to shape. It was minimal and taxing. The amount of water obtained for chakra used was highly unfavorable. The science isn't settled on if primary affinities are stronger or weaker in cross comparisons, boss. If they aren't, it may be reflective on other aspects of chakra being measured, not strength of the affinity. One clone spoke. Chakra paper may just be a significance test, telling the elements one's chakra is inclined toward, but the strength of the reaction may mean very little. Especially if the chakra is untrained anyway. If someone can use futon jutsu, then what may prevent them from using a level of said jutsu isn't due to the strength of the affinity. If you demonstrate a strong wind affinity but have the reserves of a genin, you can't do S-rank jutsu. Reserves and capacity overrule it. Some people have inclinations toward various aspects of chakra, boss, not just elemental affinities. We just don't test for them in any rationalized way. We see people struggle with ninjutsu and say they are a genjutsu type. Exactly, Tebeo. The Nidaime didn't have a stronger affinity for water. The idea makes no sense. How would you judge it? If we say it's because of how he wielded it in battle, that's improper methodology. The reason is circular. We know the Nidaime had a strong water affinity because he had a strong water affinity. Outside of his method of taking water from the atmosphere, why else is he said to have such a strong affinity? He could do the water dragon jutsu with one hand seal. Another clone spoke. Yeah, but much of the difficulty of that jutsu is about shape manipulation. We've managed to half the required hand seals after we learned the Rasengan. Another clone added. That's true, it's one of the reasons Doton jutsu tend to have fewer hand seals. The element is inherently more stable, creating a shape out of it is just more straightforward, said an additional clone. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, fellas. Let's go back to first principles. What are the elements to jutsu? The original asked. Nature and shape, the clones chorused. But not just that, one clone said after a moment. What do you mean? Yes, it's nature and shape. That holds true for ninjutsu and genjutsu, but they aren't the same. And it wasn't only the water dragon that got easier after we learned the Rasengan. Our genjutsu got a little more manageable as well. That could just be due to an increase in chakra control, said one of the shadow clones. Yeah, except we weren't only learning the Rasengan around that time. How would the Edo Tensei have dash? It wouldn't have. It's what we did before then. Yin and Yang. Original Naruto responded with a glint of understanding. We were able to feel, at least a little better, the balance of Yin and Yang in our jutsu. Ninjutsu tends to favor Yang, Genjutsu jutsu tends to favor Yin. Ichiro ninjutsu is likely the most balanced of the two. Maybe that's how. He somehow could use higher concentrations of Yang chakra in his Suiton ninjutsu, and it improved the conversion rate, making it possible to do high-level jutsu with the water molecules around him. Naruto finished only to hear clapping coming from behind him. The clones turned as well, none realizing they had an audience, too focused on their discussion. They collectively rubbed the back of their heads, sheepishly. Hi, Shirsho, they said, and she laughed. Good morning, Naruto-kuns. I see we're making some breakthroughs this morning. She spoke, earning a series of smiles. You know, some say the reason the Shodai was able to wield the Mokuton was not simply because of his affinities for Doton and Suiton, but also the high concentration of Yang chakra. Some call it the life element. She thought the look of utter amazement in the face of her student to be adorable. Naruto quickly formed the Yang style, shadow clone, and it began trying to draw water out of the atmosphere. It got splashed immediately and broke into a similar tirade. I hope I'm not interrupting. No, you aren't. They were actually working on a different project before I distracted them. And what are they working on? Maybe I can be of service. Oh, we got to know Hyuga Hinata-san yesterday, and apparently she's an archer. How cool is that? Yes, quite cool, Orochimaru said with no enthusiasm at all. Naruto didn't seem to notice. But she only uses plain arrows. When I asked what they could do, she seemed confused. So, we went to dinner last night and exchanged some ideas. I'm just having my clones go over some ceiling arrays. Leave it to an Uzumaki to turn to Fuinjutsu, I suppose. What are some of your ideas? Well, one was a knockout arrow, but instead of a poison or electric shock, I was trying to translate my ninja art, chirp, into an array. I didn't know you'd gotten it down enough to attempt that, Orochimaru asked as she quirked her brow. She'd heard Naruto complain several times about his supersonic chakra technique being near impossible to form into an actual jutsu. The only one he managed was a high-pitched sound that caused the target to go unconscious. The jutsu had two issues. One, it was used in conjunction with his sword, so it couldn't require hand seals. Secondly, he had difficulty limiting the range with any precision. Since he'd seemingly stalled, she hadn't asked about it, but it appeared that the Hyuga heiress provided some inspiration. The white snake didn't like that, not even a little, and made note to visit Hinata. I had some clones perfecting it last night, so I've finally got the control I need. Well done, she said while gentle stroking his cheek, causing him to emit a very low purr. That never happened to Bayo, the rookie Chunin exclaimed in embarrassment. We'll see, but I make no promises. Moving on, there were talks of exploding arrows. Lightning and wind-coated arrows. Arrows that had sound-dampening seals on them so they wouldn't alert the intended target, and even arrows that released a poison fog, but I ran into a complication with that. What complication? Well, I don't actually know what kind of poison the poison mist jutsu releases. And that got me thinking, can it be changed to different kind of poisons? It's really more a gas anyway, so can we create a jutsu to mimic other gases? Imagine your target is in a locked and poorly ventilated room, so you fill it with a concentration of carbon monoxide. One that dissipates soon after? That is a very good idea. I think I might have to run some experiments myself. I can't let my rival eclipse me so easily, Orochimaru said. Huh? Naruto asked, squinting and leaning his head to the right. You didn't think I'd simply allow you to be known as Konoha's greatest jutsu creator without some competition, did you? But I like this idea. I'll see if I can isolate the properties in that jutsu and we can go from there. I'd suggest you focus on your water manipulation. Any particular reason, Shursho? To stick it to Hiruzen, of course. My student, mimicking one of the crowning achievements of his beloved sensei. Something even the professor hasn't managed. Oh, turning that knife will be MMH, words can't describe. Naruto, having no words of response, went back to work. Shizen was surprised when she entered the Hokage's office to see Genma Shiranui and Reito Namishi there as well. She bowed to the Hokage and awaited the mission details, as the summons hadn't been terribly specific. She still went home and changed into her Jounin uniform instead of the kimono she normally wears outside of missions. Thank you for your prompt arrival, Shizen-chan. As one of the two people familiar with, as well as inoculated from the effects of the Ishvali iris, I thought it time I sent you to begin producing an immunization as well as an weaponized version. Genma and Reito will be there on a separate issue, so once a sample cure and poison are created you may return, of course making sure to give Genma and Reito their shots. If you have no questions and you remember my orders, you are dismissed. The three Jounin departed and made their way to the gate. Shizen could see how tense her two temporary squad mates were and thought it best to ask, to clear up any concerns. Genma, Reito, what's wrong? A lot, said the Senban chewing special Jounin. Realizing that answered nothing, he continued after activating a sound-distorting genjutsu. Not everyone in this village is blind, Shizen. Those of us who weren't were ordered to stay away from the kid. Shizen didn't visibly react, having suspected Jiraiya was told something similar. She just waited for them to continue speaking. Sandaime-sama was quite strict in his enforcement of that. We disliked it greatly. Kakashi detested it with his entire being. There were days we were concerned he was going to do something stupid and get himself killed in the process, Reito said. Especially when he wasn't allowed to take the gaki as an apprentice. A lot of trees had a lot of Chidori-shaped holes through them, Genma added. There wasn't a lot we could do for him, not directly, but we did watch out for him. Made sure no one ever attacked him or tried to cheat him. The few times he had to go to the hospital we checked to make sure he was being treated fairly, spoke Reito, and seeing Shizen's dark look, reassured her. They were always professional, and some were even more than that. Genma continued. Anyway, we couldn't have him as a student, couldn't even run missions with him as Sandaime-sama wouldn't allow it. But we did keep an eye out on his mission reports, to see how he was progressing and to make sure none of the Chunin were risking his life or trying to jam him up. When he returned from Ishval, Kakashi got to the report first and immediately went to Sandaime-sama and requested an A-rank assassination mission he'd finance himself. We were proud of the gaki for making it, but knew being the only one to survive would mess with him. And it did. He didn't really return to normal until he was on Kurenai's team, and that took a couple of months. Sorry, I digressed. We'd have gone with Kakashi no problem, but the Sandaime refused. Said the leader of Ishval, Ichiro Kurosawa, was now indebted to Konoha. That the man had more value alive than dead. We don't share that opinion. Not only did he lie to get that team there, he got 3 ninja killed because the greedy little bastard thought he could control 2 Kiri swordsmen. Before you got there, he was warning us against any rash decisions and stated if anything were to happen to the bastard, he'd hold us responsible, stated Reito. So, what is your mission? Asked Shizen, frowning at the man that nearly got her surrogate brother killed. She remembered how broken Naruto looked after he was cured. Initially, only Taunton could get a positive reaction out of him, but he did open up eventually. However, it was nowhere near as bubbly as he'd act now in their company. She understood why they wanted to hurt that man. We're to escort Ichiro back here, that's all we know. Genma said as the three reached the gate. They checked out and then took off toward Ishval at impressive speeds. Kakashi made his way to the manor, signature book in hand. He was not expecting the warmest greetings, but even that lack of expectation didn't prepare him for what he received. "Who are you, dickhead?" Ma Uzumaki-chan. That's not very nice. I am Hatake Kakashi and I'm here to see Naruto about a mission. Oh, well, come in, he's out back talking to him, she said as she led him to the back. Kakashi had to admit that the house lacked much of what one would expect in the home of an evil scientist bent on world domination, or whatever her aims are. He really couldn't be asked to care, honestly. The large complex did seem comfortable, almost homey. It was weird. Like finding out the Kyuubi really liked the snuggle. "Tayuya, who is this?" asked the second Uzumaki, so Karen Kakashi reasoned as she carried some medical texts, if the titles were to be believed. "This is Dickhead, he's here for Stump." Karen just rolled her eyes. Tayuya had to have respect beaten into her. It wasn't one of her better qualities. Karen turned toward the Jounin and introduced herself, and he did so in kind as the trio made it to the back to see Naruto and several clones having a furious discussion. "Oi, Stump!" Tayuya shouted and did well to get out of the way of the kunai aimed at her head. "Overreact much, asshole?" she responded, only to get flipped off as Naruto walked over to the group. Karen sighed. Her cousins were weird. "Sorry, Hatake-san, Tayuya isn't housebroken yet," Karen said, only to receive her own one-finger salute. "Hey guys," Naruto greeted, ignoring Tayuya's continued complaints. "Hello, Naruto-chan. You free for a quick, in-village C-rank mission?" "Sure, Kurenai-sensei gave us the day to train ourselves. What do you need me to do?" "Come with me, I'll explain on the way," he said, and the two departed. "Tayuya, why are you so mean to Naruto? He's sensitive about his height." "Because it's funny. Besides, Tsunade-sama said to gently razz him when she's not around." "Why do you call her Tsunade-sama?" Karen asked in confusion. "Tayuya is only that respectful to Orochimaru-sama." "I don't want to talk about it," Tayuya said, color drained from her face. The two arrived to Training Ground 3 and Naruto saw the familiar smoke of a dispelled shadow clone. Why Kakashi didn't send a clone to get him, he could not imagine, and apparently it was a question shared by his team. "Why did you leave a clone with us, sensei?" Sakura shouted. Naruto didn't remember her being that loud. He wondered when it happened. Ma, I just like him more is all." "No big deal," Kakashi responded while his students and an Inuzuka puppy face vaulted into the ground. "Too honest, sensei, much too honest," Kiba said. "Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. Think of this as a life lesson. Now, today, Sakura, Kiba and Akamaru, you'll be with me. The team was entirely too straightforward in your approach to yesterday's drill. That kind of behavior is dangerous, so we'll be doing some exercises to expand your creativity in tactics. What about Sasuke-kun? He will get some tutoring in ninjutsu from Naruto here." Sasuke looked both interested and confused. "You're the copy ninja, why can't you teach me ninjutsu?" "That's a really good question, Sasuke. See, as your Jounin sensei, I teach you what I think you need to know to survive, not what you want to know. If you want additional lessons, then we have other resources. Naruto here has paid for multiple C-rank missions to receive private lessons from one of the village's experts. Didn't much help with his right-un though," Kakashi answered, smiling at Naruto near the end of his statement. "When you get some free time, I want to spar. I'll show you a right-un jutsu to bail. I look forward to it. Now Kiba, Sakura with me. You two have fun." Naruto waited for the other members of Team 7 to depart before he spoke to Sasuke. "Is there a body of water near here? We'll be focusing on Katon." Sasuke nodded and started to walk in the direction of a pond. "Why Katon?" "My primary is right-un, and word has it you can use every element." "Word has it? Tapped into the rumor mill, Sasuke-san?" "My Kunoichi teammate is. It's 99% annoying, but this once was approaching useful." "You also didn't answer my question." "Oh, that's simple. Kakashi paid for the lesson and requested I focus on your fire jutsu. Also, given what I'll be teaching you, it works better if you have a few jutsu known already." "Aren't you teaching me jutsu?" Sasuke asked in confusion. "No. Well, maybe. Kakashi left that up to my discretion." "Then what is the point of this?" Naruto could hear the annoyance in his voice and sighed a little. A solo C rank isn't bad money, but he wished Sasuke could just be a little patient. "It's the difference between teaching you a recipe and teaching you how to cook." Sasuke didn't hide the confusion. "If I give you a recipe, you know how to do that recipe. If I teach you the individual skills that go into cooking, then you can do a lot more. Naruto's metaphor wasn't helping. Okay, let's try a different track. I can draw my sword from the side or overhead from my back perfectly. It never catches, it is always smooth. Does that make me a master swordsman? No, of course not. Then why is it if someone can execute a single jutsu in a similar fashion repeatedly, are they a master of that jutsu? I never really thought about it. Almost no one does. I'm not going to just teach you a jutsu, I'm going to teach you an approach to jutsus so you get more out of them. One jutsu that can do 3 things is better than 3 jutsu that do 1 thing, Naruto said as the pair reached the pond. Now I understand you favor the great fireball jutsu, right? Sasuke nodded, so he continued. How many people have you managed to actually hit with it? Not many, Sasuke admitted, reluctantly. Understandable, it's powerful for a C-rank jutsu, but unless the enemy is immobile it can be avoided. It's also pretty centralized. But what if it weren't? What do you mean? Activate your Sharingan and watch. Sasuke did just that and watched as Naruto went through the familiar hand seals. Naruto inhaled deeply, but when he started to exhale the shape of his mouth was different. His lips were slightly closed at the middle and the fire jutsu split, sending 2 medium-sized fireballs, one to the left and one to the right. That is just one simple alteration, Naruto said, only for Sasuke to smirk in satisfaction. Naruto didn't know why, but he had the urge to call the last Uchiha a bastard but just ignored it. What neither boy realized was the presence of a third party, watching the pair with the smallest of smiles hid behind his AMBU mask. How does one forgive themselves? Is it a feeling? A place you'll only know you've reached once you've managed it? Or is it a choice? One you make once or multiple times? Kurenai didn't know this, didn't have the clearest explanation for it, so she felt like a fraud when she advised Anko to do just that, to forgive herself. Ninja live with guilt. Almost all have done something that could and potentially should feel guilty about. Many hide the guilt behind quirky behavior or patriotic zeal. Some a nindo. Others just simply numb themselves, but the guilt is there, even with the skewed morals they adopt. No one process is truly superior to another, and what triggers that sense is as wide-ranging as the personalities of the ninja in Konoha's forces. But guilt is a singularly limiting emotion. Where other emotions can be put to good use, even anger and rage can be beneficial. Guilt is limiting. It isn't a sign you've learned a lesson, it's a process of continuing to obsess, harp on a wrong you've done. It can make you slower, depressed, or sloppy. No one had to look further than Kakashi to see what guilt could do. Someone that should clearly be Kage level is only really getting back to seriously training himself. Kurenai didn't want that for Anko, for her to languish. While not always productive, her hatred for Orochimaru did push her to try to improve. This could cause her to backslide, and given she may be in the front lines in a few short months, there simply was no time for that. Hence, Anko needed to give herself permission to move on. Kurenai was thankful her friend could acknowledge the logic of her words, but it was clear this would be a struggle. No one wants to admit they are similar to the person they hate most in the world, as you don't want to empathize with him. It's easier if they are simple, monstrous individuals. Complexity gets in the way, and thanks to her student, she'd been getting a more and more complicated view of the once traitor and the current Hokage. She still thought Orochimaru was a monster, but in the way humans can be. The distance between her and anyone else a matter of degrees, not type. And the Sandaime wasn't the kind, wizened leader she once thought. He was still those things, but also someone that loved his own lore and the glory that came with the title. Someone who could have potentially preyed upon her if circumstances had been different, only to throw her away when she became inconvenient, no longer needed for his ego. As the pictures of these people became more and more complicated, she only wished people she cared about weren't caught in the middle. Anko and Naruto most specifically, but Asuma as well. He knew Orochimaru was manipulating him, she simply wagered the reveal of the affair would outweigh that concern. Now Asuma's relationship with the Sandaime was in tatters, all the progress they made completely undone. Anko was slipping into an emotional black hole, and Naruto? She didn't even know, except he hated the Sandaime and respected the Sannin, relying on her to get him through the upcoming trials. Nothing about this was right, nothing about it set well, but the Genjutsu mistress felt powerless to influence, let alone control any of it. She was out of her depths, getting stronger but not strong enough to ensure Naruto could face down multiple S-rank opponents. Smart but not informed enough to navigate the plots and plans Orochimaru seemed to craft with great efficacy. But what she could do is be there. Offer comfort to Anko. A sounding board to Asuma. And a way to keep Naruto connected to his teammates, and possibly the village at large. She wouldn't let him be isolated just in case Orochimaru was manipulating him. It wasn't much, but she'd make the best of it. So wrapped up in her thoughts, she didn't notice Anko drift off on her shoulder as the two sat in the special Jounin's bed, exhaustion finally taking her. Kurenai felt her resolve harden. She'd be here for those she cared about, and she didn't need to be a legend to do it. That's enough for today, Sasuke-san. Don't want you slipping into chakra exhaustion, Naruto said. The Uchiha had done well with finding different ways to perform his jutsu, but he could only get so far until he's done the manipulation exercises. Still, there was progress and Naruto had performed his assigned duties. Honest day's work for honest day's pay. You have much experience with chakra exhaustion? I've never experienced it. I think I hate you a little, Sasuke admitted. Near endless chakra would be a dream come true. Yeah, it's sunshine and roses. You'd cry if you had to invest as much time into chakra control as I have and still do. I don't cry. Big, sloppy bitch boy tears. Every day. I don't know, I think he'd do the single tear to be extra dramatic and deep, Kakashi supplied as he walked toward the pair. Sasuke scowled, but there was no real heat to it. I think I should cry that a Chunin is better at instructing me than my Jounin sensei. Just because Naruto works for cheap doesn't mean I don't understand my own value, Sasuke-chan. I think he just insulted us both, Naruto said with sweat drop. I did. I must have done something wrong in a past life to deserve you, Kakashi. If only Sasuke knew. Ma. I'm one of the strongest Jounin in the village. You're lucky to have me. Who else would pay a prodigy to teach you in his area of expertise? I'm not a prodigy to Bayo. Naruto responded only to see two faces giving him the really face. What? I'm not. And the last person to call me that got his ass kicked, so beware. Anyway, it appears you're done for the day, so you are dismissed, Sasuke. Naruto, you can pick up your pay at the mission office anytime, but if you're free I'll give you that spar you asked for. My schedule is open, Naruto answered, not hiding his excitement. A chance to test himself against an acclaimed Jounin and his dad's student was quite the opportunity. It'd also be a good test. Can I stay and watch? Sure, but no Sharingan. Lifting jutsu off me is one thing, but Naruto's fall under clan techniques. Sasuke nodded, not even bothered by the stipulation. Spending a few hours with the redhead, he saw how much thought went into common jutsu. He wouldn't steal his work, it just wouldn't sit right. Each combatant got into their stance and Sasuke noticed Kakashi actually put his book away, a signal he'd be taking Naruto somewhat seriously. Both looked relaxed, content to wait for some unseen signal. Whatever it was, Naruto blurred toward Kakashi, having aimed low with a sweep kick to Kakashi's left. The copy ninja simply lifted his leg. Naruto completed his rotation and quickly sprung up to hit Kakashi in the stomach. Kakashi slapped the strike away while backing up, not allowing Naruto to negate his superior reach. While still on his back foot, Kakashi sent out a swift jab. Naruto narrowly dodged it and grabbed the offending arm. Kakashi had no interest in whatever the Uzumaki was planning and pushed him back with a front kick. Naruto sent several shuriken toward him in response, halting Kakashi's plan to press his advantage. Naruto dashed forward again. This time he sent a high kick towards Kakashi's right side, but it was easily blocked. A second kick from the same foot followed the block and Kakashi guarded against the kick strike. Naruto tried for a third attempt, having never planted his foot after the first kick, but this time he pulled the leg back slight to perform a standing side kick. The maneuver caught Kakashi off guard enough to clip him on his hip. But he was a veteran for a reason. Kakashi rolled with the strike and sent a left cross toward Naruto. The speed and distance was such that Naruto had no time to dodge and instead he took the strike. Kakashi watched as his head snapped back and the redhead fell on the ground, out cold. Knowing this wasn't right, the Jounin flared his chakra, performing a ram hand seal and saying, Kai! To see he'd hit a log and Naruto was in the air coming out of a somersault. Taking a page from the Uzumaki's book, he performed a quick substitution and Naruto's feet met a log. Kakashi looked down at the rookie Chunin from atop a tree branch, smiling. He reasoned Naruto placed a very subtle genjutsu on him when he grabbed Kakashi's arm. Kakashi sent a brace of shuriken, knowing they weren't going to hit. He simply needed to distract Naruto from tracking his shunshin. The redhead didn't dodge, instead he created a 2-meter wall to intercept the projectiles. Kakashi was undeterred, appearing behind Naruto. The Uzumaki was just fast enough to get up his guard to absorb the snap kick of Kakashi, sending Naruto into his mud wall, but instead of the thud, he and Sasuke were expecting Naruto merge with the wall, coming out the other side. Naruto formed the ram seal and caused the wall to drop, then resumed his attack on Kakashi. He jumped and kicked Kakashi, who lifted his right arm to block. Naruto brought up his other foot, but Kakashi ducked the follow-up, raising when the leg passed his head and kicking Naruto away. Naruto rolled into a skid but had to hastily defend Kakashi's offensive, ducking and dodging when he could. Having had enough, Naruto formed a Rasengan which surprised Kakashi just enough for Naruto to kick him away. The power behind the blow impressed the cyclopic Jounin. And here I thought I was going to have to warn you about using that against a comrade. To have the chakra to waste on using the Rasengan as a feint, it must be nice. It has its advantages. For instance, Naruto didn't finish, instead speedily performed a series of hand seals and thought wind style, gale bullets. The technique, similar to wind bullets in that compressed air is formed into a shell. However, the shell isn't as stable and this jutsu doesn't have the piercing power. In exchange, when the constructs meet resistance they unleash the stored wind chakra and a high amount of concussive force. Kakashi simply assumed it was the wind bullet and dodged them, only to be jettisoned toward the water by the gale force winds. He wasted no time performing the water style, water dragon jutsu once he landed, causing Naruto to put up another mud wall. From behind the mud wall emerged 3 Naruto clones, each moving at top speed to attack Kakashi. The Jounin the charge, fending off the clones but paying attention to the real Naruto's location. He watched his sensei's son join them on the water but kept his distance, instead forming a long chain of hand seals, 22 by his estimate. Kakashi had no intention of waiting to see what was about to happen and quickly dispelled the clones with retrieved kunai and rushed toward the original. He almost made it but Naruto finished the seal chain in time and Kakashi's charge was halted by a tentacle grabbing his left ankle. It was soon joined by 3 more, each grabbing a limb and before Kakashi knew it he was pulled under the water. That was Naruto's strongest Suiton jutsu, water style, release the Kraken jutsu. Once Naruto learned that some Kiri shinobi were able to form semi-autonomous water constructs and the Nidain was able to form an exploding water dragon he dedicated a far amount of clones to accomplishing the task. While he couldn't do it out of a body of water, he found forming something in water was a manageable task. It still took him 4 months to get an even quasi-workable version down, but he's improved a lot since then. He was only 10 at the time. Kakashi was both impressed and amused at the large, mythical, yellow-eyed squid that was dragging him toward the bottom of the lake. It was really quite fearsome and was putting on the squeeze as it attempted for Kakashi to take in water. Naruto was giving him a decent workout, but if he let this drag on too much longer the Uzumaki might get the wrong message. Kakashi channeled a fair bit of right-un chakra through his body, destabilizing the jutsu and propelled himself back to the surface. Naruto saw the Jounin returned and noticed his eye was uncovered. Really, using the Sharingan against the Chunin? Naruto asked and Kakashi just shrugged, completely shameless in his overreaction. Naruto braced himself, knowing things were about to get a lot more difficult. This is so embarrassing. Naruto grumbled from the back of Kakashi. He'd been correct, things did become more difficult in that almost everything he tried was neutralized or countered and he got his ass handed to him. Admittedly, not that surprising as Orochimaru does it constantly as well but at least she leaves him his dignity. And he was too tired to even fight him on it. I couldn't just leave you in the field. I might have preferred it. Besides, didn't you go a little hard on me? You could handle it. Clearly, I didn't push you hard enough if you didn't use any Fuin or Kenjutsu. Besides, you needed to learn that the little brother can't beat the big brother. Law of nature. Well, thanks for that, Nisama, Naruto said with an eye roll. Listen, Naruto dash. I know the old man ordered you to stay away from me. Jiraiya said as much. I don't blame you or anything. I appreciate that, but I should have done more. No sense dwelling on it now. Besides, I'm still here though. If you're just going to beat me down and force piggyback rides on me, I might have to defect to Bayo. Well, it's lucky for me I'm quite the gifted tracker, Kakashi said before knocking on the door. They didn't have to wait long for the exact last person Naruto wanted to see him like this. Kukuku long day? Naruto had never felt so lame. We had a spar and I pushed him a little hard is all. He might need some help. No, I don't, just put me down. He'd crawl, roll, or do the freaking worm, but he was not letting Orochimaru carry him. Unfortunately, his body couldn't obey his command to protest vehemently, and he found himself in the Sannin's grasp. He had a new appreciation for how sacks of potatoes felt. I thank you, Kakashi. No problem. Naruto, I'll be in touch. Kakashi couldn't hear his response, but it sounded a lot like ducking traitor. He departed and left Naruto with his humiliation, as a good older brother should. Orochimaru walked through the door, ignoring Naruto's assurances that he could walk. If he could move, he'd have done so, but Kakashi had managed to push him near physical exhaustion. Impressive given his stamina, but Kakashi's years of experience would aid in negating that advantage. As she made her way to Naruto's temporary room, he finally said something that made her pay attention. Are you alright, Shirsho? I'm fine, why do you ask? Something seemed to be bothering you this morning, but I didn't want to pry. That surprised her as he hadn't let on he suspected anything. Seeing no reason to lie, she responded. I removed Anko's curse seal last night and stayed with her. It was at the behest of Koharu, an attempt to make amends. I don't know what will come of it. Oh, maybe it'll work out and you two can reconcile. I can appreciate your optimism, but I doubt it. Could you forgive Sensei? I don't know. When I think about all he's done, I can understand a lot of it, but what hurt the most was his refusal to trust me. If he'd explained everything, we could have worked something out, but he chose not to, and when things started changing between us, when the things that should have earned his acknowledgement were essentially ignored, I had no way to understand it. I wondered if it was my fault or if he never really cared, and that's when I started to hate him. The hiding my lineage, the taking from my inheritance were betrayals, but it only added to what I was already feeling. Could he make it up to you? I can't say. If he'd admitted to everything before he was forced to, if he didn't do things to still try to save face, like telling the ninja forces the removal of the Uzumaki swirl was because the clan was becoming official within the village, then maybe. Interesting. I wouldn't hold out much hope for Anko then. I don't think she's as forgiving as you, and I did something similar. Maybe not, but sometimes it only takes a really small gesture. Naruto said, and was grateful Orochimaru didn't try anything weird like tucking him in, though she did seem lost in her thoughts. He did mean what he said. As angry as he was with the old man, those early years of his, the craving for absolution, he knows how heavy that weight can be. It took Bagheera a long time to convince him he truly didn't deserve it, but counseled his summoner to always remember the feeling. Holding people responsible is one thing, but holding grudges is something else, and those lines can blur in an instant. Orochimaru had thought about Naruto's words. She very rarely cared about who she'd wronged in her life, but Anko was an exception, especially when she realized how she was mimicking her own sensei. The curse seal was supposed to help her, make her stronger while taking away her memories so she couldn't be held responsible for anything she was ordered to do. That didn't pan out, but maybe there was something she could do for her former student once the Ama invasion was over and the Akatsuki were gone. One small gesture? What could it hurt? Chapter 9. Hurts Me Soul. 3 heiresses walked through a part of the village away from the clan district. This by itself would hardly be noteworthy, except all 3 were headed toward the apartment building of the QB container. That people paid attention to, but none of the 3 young ladies returned the attention. Hinata, Hanabi, and Ino were headed towards Naruto's rooftop garden, one he'd been cultivating since he started at the Shinobi Academy. His team got a mission of unspecified length, and several of his plants were at a delicate stage. He then handed her a seal tag and said it would grant her access to the garden and his apartment, both protected by security seals. Hinata agreed but knew very little about gardening, even with his detailed directions, so she enlisted her teammate. She was somewhat surprised the Yamanaka joined in so readily until she figured it would be a chance to snoop a little and collect some gossip. She may have been getting better, or at least more subtle, but Ino was Ino. She didn't expect the thing that drove the Mindjutsu specialist wild was the presence of high-quality volcanic ash, apparently a luxury prized by every horticulturist worth her salt. Hinata suspected it was from his lava jutsu, but she never shared that little tidbit, not even after he saw fit to reveal it. It'd be difficult to explain she was observing him for a S-rank trader because of a deal she'd made when she was 4. Besides, it was one of her fondest memories, seeing the presumed impossible and then his reaction, how he lit up so bright he rivaled the very sun. How it was made all the more impressive by how many times he failed to manage it, and besides, for moments of doubt, he kept going. It was inspiring, enough to allow her not to falter in her own pursuits. If anyone knew, they'd call her a traitor and likely a coward, but she didn't care. It was her life, and she wouldn't live it how others thought she should. But that didn't mean she'd forego all responsibilities. She wanted to make sure her little sister wouldn't be a slave to the outdated clan doctrine of the Hyuga, that she wouldn't devote herself to the Hyuga way, simply because it was expected. No, Hanabi wouldn't be arrogant and elitist like much of her clan. Even many of the branch members look down on non-Hyuga residents. They claim it is the traditions of the clan that kept it strong, but the clan has flourished under the protection of Konoha. There was a reason while it was a significant clan. It was the Senju and the Uchiha that changed the path of shinobi. But the Hyuga would never admit it, never tell the truth of their history. Their way was the same as every other clan during the warring era: procreate a lot and hope for the best. Rigid traditions would be exploited and get you killed. If nothing else, she'd be thankful to Orochimaru for providing her alternative histories, alternatives to a lot of things. Even if she were ordered to throw the fight against Neji, it didn't matter. She was secure in her strength and her purpose. She'd only have to lend that strength to Hanabi so she wouldn't be swallowed up in hagiographies and lies or seduced into the cult of the gentle fist. If she were lucky, it'd be the lasting legacy of her rebellion, and like a true shinobi, no one would ever truly know she'd been the architect. The 3 girls jumped to the roof, with Hinata helping Hanabi, and entered the garden. For a restricted space, the vegetation present was breathtaking, various colors strewn throughout. It was peaceful but gave off a feel of being nearly untamed, bordering on chaotic. It fit with the spiraling maelstrom that created it. The trio got to work, watering, pruning, or even harvesting what needed to be. A crop of heirloom tomatoes, deep purple in color and quite plump, were especially ready. "I bet Sasuke-kun would really like these. Tomatoes are his favorite food." Ino chirped and Hinata responded noncommittally, not wanting to encourage talk of the Uchiha. So, and here it came, the fishing expedition. There aren't a lot of people that know much about Naruto, and I didn't think he was close to any of the rookies outside of Shikamaru and Shino, so why'd he pick you to tend to his secret garden? As I've said before, he was low on options and knew I liked flower pressing. He figured I could manage it. I knew better, and that's why I asked you. But he at least trusted you somewhat. You need a seal to even get in here. I suppose he does. How'd you manage it? We talked, The story is the same. After our joint exercise we had dinner and just talked. Must have been some talk. I've tried talking to Sasuke-kun for years and it's gone nowhere. One night and you're getting keys to the apartment. Maybe I should take lessons, Ino stated with a shit-eating grin. What's so significant about getting keys, Ne-sama? Ino is suggesting Naruto likes me in a romantic sense. Does he? No, Amuto, he doesn't. Ino just has an overactive imagination. That's good. Besides, Neji needs and hates him. Don't allow Neji's feelings to dictate too much to you, Hanabi-chan. He hates the rain when he gets wet, so him hating someone isn't that remarkable. Hi. In the Shimmering Leaf, one of Konoha's nicest hotels, sat Ichiro Kurosawa. A once handsome, young man, chestnut hair and a slim physique. His face was boyish, his eyes a forest green. He was 5 feet 8 inches, not incredibly tall but not short either. He'd used his looks and his position as leader of Ishval to charm many women over his 30 years of life, but that was in the past. Since that demon came to Ishval, the people called him the Crimson Tiger, but Ichiro knew the boy wasn't a beast but something worse. He stared into the bathroom mirror, looking at himself, cursing how he'd lost it all. His chocolate-brown kimono and matching sash, both made of the finest silks of his home. He once prided himself on giving off the impression he was an aristocrat, a noble of one of the major lands. A sophisticated and cunning tactician. Few of his sources of pride remained intact, however, and he couldn't help but curse his fall. At first, he'd been happy his plan to lure Kushimaru and Raiga into attacking the Leaf Ninja had worked. Those two were too busy chasing down the squad, made all the more difficult as the resistance forces were acting in concert with the Konoha ninja. All of his enemies were distracted and thinning themselves out. What could be better? Except, the demon apparently took the words of the resistance fighters to heart as they, likely, filled his head with tales of their oppression. How they worked for very little and much of the richest were hoarded by their once leader. As if they could understand the responsibilities of leadership. It required much, so it deserved equal reward. They all had enough, no one starved. Why wasn't enough satisfactory? Because they were selfish and spiteful. He wasn't soft-hearted like his father, he wasn't going to just give all of his rightful wealth away. Their selfishness unleashed that thing on him. The boy and one other were smuggled out of Ishval, but they found time to plant a trap in his office. It was only the worn floorboards of his second-story office that saved his life from the inferno that consumed it. But it wasn't unscathed. He suffered burns over 3/4 of his body. The left side of his face was now disfigured and he needed the help of a cane to walk. That was why it took them so long to arrive in Konoha. He required the aid of a carriage to transport him and his samurai. A loyal fool that took the codes of Iron Country far too seriously, but he'd be useful. Before he left, Ichiro wanted Uzumaki Naruto dead. No punishment the old Hokage could levy would deter the man, he'd already lost his position. He remembers the old man intimidating him with such ease, as if all before those aged eyes were mere ants for him to crush or spare at his whim. How he said the payments Konoha had been receiving for the last year wasn't enough to forgive what he'd done, and how a team of administrators from the Fire Country's daimyo would be here soon to help with the transfer of power. He'd be one of many voices in a land he was meant to rule. It was insulting. No, it was beyond that. It was profane. Ichiro hated the Hokage, he hated the missing Nin, but more than anything, he hated the Uzumaki. If he'd only died, Ichiro wouldn't have lost everything but his revenge. Sarutobi-sama sat in a training field trying to get lightning to arc in his hand. It had been about a month since he got a note delivered from a short-tempered panther that wasn't inclined to give his name. That he delivered said note in the middle of the night, in Asuma's bedroom with nothing having been disturbed, meant the former guardian ninja didn't sleep well. The note, from Naruto, stated if he wanted to learn the supersonic chakra flow he'd have to, At the very least, complete the first nature transformation exercise for lightning. Progress had been minimal. When one is used to using their chakra in specific ways, using them in different ways is akin to trying to write with your non-dominant hand, except you have that feeling of wrongness throughout your entire body. Asuma had just managed to give himself several chakra burns. "Ah, damn it!" he near shouted, but the beautiful genjutsu mistress only giggled in response. She'd been back for 2 weeks, as her boys were sent on an additional mission to the land of tea. She'd seen Asuma struggle and could sympathize. Getting used to using elemental jutsu was incredibly difficult for her, but she pushed through and gotten both of her elements, earth and fire, back under control. It made both Jounin respect the Sandaime for managing to learn and master every element. They were simply left in awe of Naruto, having beat the Sandaime's record by a decade. "If I didn't know any better, I'd see the kid was trolling me. Just complete the first exercise of the competing chakra nature, that's the easy part," he wrote. From how he explained it to me, the next step really is some order of magnitude more difficult. He speculated it might be the effects of Yin chakra, that we can limit ourselves by our beliefs, and those beliefs get engraved in our bodies. If on some level you don't think this is possible, then it won't be. Ugh, he sounds like how Dad was when I was a kid. It's not easy accepting your father is both the god of shinobi who could kick your ass on his worst day and also a geek. Speaking as someone that is heavily involved in the mental arts, I'll try not to take offense. Kurenai huffed, playfully. You know I wasn't talking about you. Genjutsu is cool, hell I'm sure the brat can do some interesting things. It's hearing the thought process behind it that's geeky. Didn't he write something on the battle implications of the Shunshin? Kurenai laughed. Yes, he did. We all thought he was being a little much when he gave us a copy. See, just like Dad. Asuma said and then frowned as he tried, once again, to generate lightning. How are you and your father? Outside of work we haven't spoken. I just can't deal with him. It was Kurenai's turn to frown as she sat up and looked Asuma in the eyes. I won't try to justify what he did, but it was decades ago, and given what's on the horizon you may not have much time to resolve your issues. Asuma bit down on his unlit cigarette, a silent concession to her argument. I can't disagree with that. I also can't deal with him. He used to tell all of us about how we had to sacrifice time with him for the village, how it pained him to be away from us. My mom always defended him, to the point she sometimes strained her relationship with us. And for what? So he can do the most cliched thing a person in his position could do? So much of my life has revolved around choices Hiruzen Sarutobi made, I just had to deal with it. I came to terms with some of it, ignoring he didn't have to stay Hokage as long as he did. But this? To betray my mom when she was his champion, when she was likely missing him just as much as we were? And look at the results? All so he could feel like a big man? Then say that. I'm not saying forgive him, only don't leave things unsaid. I don't want you to regret it and have to carry it. If nothing else, at least you can avoid that. I can't make any promises. But let's change the topic. When are your brats due back? Sometime today, Kurenai said sullenly. What's wrong? Sandaime-sama is going to finally inform Naruto of his responsibilities as a Jinchuriki during wartime. Shit. Yeah. Also, the leader of Ishval, that mission that went so wrong for Naruto while he was a reservist, is still in the village, and I'm afraid Naruto may cut him down on sight. That would not be good for his profile. It wouldn't. Hopefully, after he meets with Sandaime-sama, he'll just return to Orochimaru's and avoid any trouble, Kurenai said, having zero faith in her luck. Naruto-san, you've been really quiet, Shino observed as the trio ate breakfast before starting their final push into Konoha. It wouldn't take long to arrive to the village, as they'd kept an impressive pace before stopping the night before. As they ate, the Aburame and Nara noticed their teammates seemed lost in thought. It wasn't unusual, but the periods of silence often resulted in something novel, so Shino was curious what could be formulating in the redhead's mind. Oh, sorry, he said, scratching the back of his head. I was just thinking, when that Aoi bastard activated the Raijin no Ken, if he'd been in a dust cloud of coal he'd have blown himself up. I was wondering if I could create a jutsu to do so. Just think, a trap jutsu against right-on users from the element that is weakest against it. The other two boys perked up at the thought. If he had, we'd have lost the treasure of the village. Shikamaru started, pointing to the lightning sword clipped to Naruto's waist, and then followed up with, What would be the complications? Shikamaru asked. Very few doton are performed by strictly internal manipulation. The chakra is generally directed toward the ground. But a dust cloud would be released from the mouth, I'd imagine. To try to do it from the ground would just seem too uncontrollable. Naruto started. Another issue is getting the correct rock type and then into dust. Sounds troublesome, Potentially, I won't know until I start the process. Sometimes the manipulation is easier than you think it'll be. If it works, I likely won't keep it a clan technique, given our status with Kumo and the abundance of Doton users. That would certainly endear you to many of the forces, Shino observed. For some reason I doubt it, Naruto replied, then started breaking down camp. His squad mates only frowned slightly in acknowledgement of his words, not liking that their upbeat teammate didn't have much faith in his comrades. 3 medics and a mad scientist sit around Orochimaru's rectangular kitchen table. After Naruto's query about the poison mist jutsu, Orochimaru thought it wise to enlist the help of Tsunade and Shizen. They'd likely take a different approach than either she or Kabuto would. It didn't take long for Tsunade to conclude the original jutsu was a necrotoxin, meant to cause rapid and expansive cellular death. The challenge was to adapt that to other types. It seemed all were energized by this new puzzle. Orochimaru had managed to create a myotoxin, one mimicking some of her summons. She could even control if it simply paralyzed or was eventually fatal. Tsunade and Shizen were able to create a neurotoxin variant. The meeting was to decide where else to take their project and who they'd teach, if any, these new techniques. While all the women were enthused with their progress, Kabuto quietly fumed that the inspiration for this was Naruto, someone he was convinced was in need of promote removal. He hated how his mistress wouldn't even consider using live subjects to test her new jutsu. She claimed it was not worth the risk as they were still being watched, but he suspected it was because her newest student wouldn't approve. As if his opinion mattered in the slightest. Kabuto-kun, would you like to join us? Sorry, Orochimaru-sama, the former spy said, adjusting his glasses as he did, which did not go unnoticed. As I was saying, these aren't like elemental ninjutsu. Having a high degree of scientific knowledge is necessary to properly form the jutsu. That really only leaves Irionin to learn them. Enko would have sufficient knowledge, she deals with poisons and I trained her well in the sciences. Enko-san may be ideal. Unfortunately, from what Tsunade-sama and I have witnessed, we have a lot of medics but virtually no combat medics in the regular forces. I'd hesitate teaching a non-combatant these and I can't estimate how long it'd take them to get back up to par, Shizen stated before taking a sip of tea from the floral-patterned cup. Agreed, Tsunade said, annoyed. We've got a new crop, from Chunin to Genin, but they are still learning the basics, so B-rank jutsu that could harm them if not performed correctly. I just can't see it. What about you? She asked the snake Sannin. Mine roughly mimic the venom of my summons, so having a close bond with the snakes would make it easier. I'll pass on a scroll to Enko as I doubt she'd welcome my presence. But as for your versions, Karen would be able to manage it. She's no Genin, I assure you of that. I'll consider it, it'd be nice to share something with my cousin clan. So, what's next? Shape manipulation, Orochimaru said and then laughed when all 3 medics hung their heads. It's a truism, but medics are complete and total crap at advanced shape manipulation. I'll get Naruto-kun to contribute if either of you mind. Great, he'll have a 6-headed poisoned bird flying around in no time, Kabuto muttered absent-mindedly. Causing Orochimaru to put eyes on him, Tsunade quirked her brow and Shizen frowned in response. Sounds like someone is jealous of your new student. What's wrong, brat? Sensei not giving you enough personal attention? Tsunade teased. Kabuto would normally glare at someone that mocked him, but he liked having his head attached to his body, so he decided to play along. I'll admit, it is difficult not to feel inadequate around Naruto-kun. To be so gifted at such an age. Kukuku, fret not, Kabuto-kun. Your talents may lie elsewhere, but they are considerable. The foursome finished their meeting and the slug Sannin departed with her student. While she had placated him then, Orochimaru had no intention of doing so now that they were alone. We clearly need to talk, Kabuto-kun. About what, Orochimaru-sama? The question earned him the kuzunaji to his throat. Have you grown so arrogant as to think you can play dumb with me, boy? The white snake asked, pressing the blade just hard enough it wouldn't draw blood. Kabuto did a small shake of his head, and she withdrew her sword. Now, what is your problem? The medic knew he couldn't say what he really wanted to, that the red-haired Uzumaki was dulling her blade. That he was a bad influence on her, changing her in small but noticeable ways, and he hated it. That he missed twisting lower life forms as they laid, helpless, on a cold steel table. Then an idea struck him. I feel restless, Orochimaru-sama. When I was a double agent there was at least the risk of that, as well as being able to do our work. But now I'm a genin. The Sandaime isn't going to promote me in retaliation for being a spy. The only thing that saves me is your pardon. I need something to do, I'm going stir-crazy. I'm sorry. Kukuku, I can relate. I detest when things stagnate. I'll see if I can arrange a mission for you, something nice and bloody. How's that sound? Like just what I need, Orochimaru-sama. I'll set it up, but don't you have a shift at the hospital? Yes, I do. I'll leave now, Kabuto stated and vacated the manor. Orochimaru wasted no time summoning a snake, a puff adder that was brown with specks of black. Orochimaru looked down the small snake and relayed her orders. Go to Guren-chan, tell her I believe Kabuto may be planning to betray me. Tell her to make the necessary preparations and wait for confirmation. The snake dispelled itself and she continued to sit at her table, now deep in thought. Kabuto would be recognized as her second in command by most, but truthfully, she's never trusted the spy. He worked for someone attempting to kill her, and his greatest skill is his duplicity. But he believed he was her most trusted, most relied on subordinate. Kabuto likely believes he knows more about her plans and her network than anyone else. He knows a tiny fraction, and she had kept track of how much he knew, so if he ever turned on her, all of his information could be rendered moot as she burned those segments. Only Kimimaro and Guren had her full faith as far as subordinates went, and both had the good sense to never be jealous of Naruto. He was different and meant for more. Kabuto had seemingly forgotten this or just disliked it enough to consider rebelling. It was a shame, he was a talented medic and researcher. He hadn't maximized his potential, but if he were committed to betraying her, then Kabuto would meet a slow and painful end. His ability to self-heal would only prolong his suffering. Her only true concern was that Kabuto wouldn't target herself but Naruto. She'd simply watch and wait, as this might just be adolescent petulance. A samurai, trained in Iron Country by the famed Ito, Iron Wolf, Watanabe, sat just inside the check-in gate of Konoha. He'd do this periodically, waiting for his target, and it seemed his steadfastness and patience had finally paid off. 3 preteens were at the gate, and he could finally complete the task given to him by his new lord. One of the boys had horrible posture for an alleged warrior and looked incredibly lazy. Another, covered up in a large jacket with his eyes guarded by darkened glasses, just seemed to want to fade into the background. But it was the last one, the short one in a flak jacket similar to the lazy boy, except he had a sword strapped to his back. Red hair down to his shoulders and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. This was the alleged fearsome warrior that had caused such damage? It was somewhat hard to believe, but as a trained samurai he knew ninja could do some truly incredible things. Nothing a true samurai had to worry about. Like many of the initiates of Iron Country, he believed shinobi could not stand up to them in direct combat but only win through disreputable and honorless methods. That's why he planned to challenge the boy directly. A part of him distressed at killing one so young. The boy had chosen his path and must walk it to its very end. He put his hand on the hilt of his sword, preparing to walk toward the so-called tiger, but the boy disappeared in a blur, leaving only his teammates to come through the gate. He approached the 2 boys, his back straight, his gait smooth but purposeful. He would always display his pride as a swordsman, a warrior, and would use it to intimidate the 2 youngsters. "Excuse me, may I have a word?" he asked, his face emotionless. "Regarding what?" the covered-up boy asked. "That boy that just departed, was he Uzumaki Naruto?" Without missing a beat, the lazy boy asked. "Troublesome, why do you want to know?" "We have a private matter to settle and it cannot be delayed," he said, grip tightening on his sword. The boys made a face. He assumed they would debate whether or not to tell him. "Konoha shinobi don't give information about their comrades to strangers. If you want to meet Uzumaki Naruto, you should go to the Hokage so he can set it up," the lazy boy said. "I may not be able to get a meeting with your leader, and this is time sensitive. If that was Naruto-san, you'd do well to tell me now so I can be on my way." "Forgive me, but that sounded like a threat. Are you threatening us, Samurai-san?" The other boy, he'd almost forgot was there, asked. Now, he was receiving the attention of others and realized it was in his interest not to press things further. "If you know Naruto-san, please have him meet me at the Shimmering Leaf, it would be appreciated." And the swordsman walked away. "He never did give us a name," Shino observed. "Troublesome, we better report this," Shikamaru said before a weasel-masked ANBU appeared before them. "It is already known, Nara-san. You may go about your day," he said dryly and shunted away. "Troublesome. Shino, that's my line." Naruto entered the Hokage's office with an impassive face, the one he always adopted when dealing with the old man. He was surprised to see his advisors and Tsunade in attendance. It, he reasoned, explained why he was requested to report directly to the Hokage alone. He stepped forward and greeted the Hokage formally. The man didn't visibly react, but it still hurt that his bond with Naruto was gone. However, they had more important matters and it'd be another indictment on his foolishness. "Thank you for getting here so promptly, Naruto-kun. As you can surmise, I didn't call you here for a debriefing on a standard C rank. Instead, I am here to inform you of some important information." Naruto kept his impassive facade but internally wondered what could be so important to him specifically. The Hokage, after taking a moment, continued. As you know, soon we will be in a state of war, officially. When that happens, you as a Jinchuriki will no longer be in the traditional chain of command. All hidden villages do this, we just don't let it be known who our Jinchuriki are. In fact, until it is declared the war has ended, you'd be under the direct command of the sitting Hokage. Your status, Naruto, would be equal to the Jounin and ANBU commanders, Hamura added. During the Third Shinobi War, your mother was not on the battlefield for long, instead she was in charge of domestic security. Her Fuinjutsu knowledge and talent with barriers made her ideal for keeping Konoha safe from any parties trying to attack us directly. Most of the shinobi forces that knew her were too afraid to contradict her, and none questioned her status when Hiruzen gave the order, Koharu stated. We haven't decided what your overall status would be, but I am leaning towards Chunin Commander. You should start studying strategy and tactics in case. You should also keep in mind, there will be pushback, but you'll have to find a way to navigate it. Hiruzen finished, and the Uzumaki lost his face, feeling overwhelmed but more so angry. If only I'd been a Chunin for longer than 5 minutes. How do you expect the largest section of the shinobi forces to listen to a 12-year-old that just got promoted? Naruto asked, seethingly. I know this isn't ideal, Naruto-kun, but it is what must be done. We'll be firming up our plans for the invasion and relaying it all to you soon. Now, if there isn't anything pressing you need to share, you are dismissed. Naruto unhooked something from his back and turned towards Tsunade, who'd been quiet this entire time as her voice was already hoarse with rage. I retrieved the Raijin no Ken, here you go, Oba-chan, Naruto said, throwing the hilt to the slug Sannin and departing before any questions could be asked. He also missed the fond smiles Tsunade, Koharu, and Hamura had of the lost Senju treasure and reminder of their family and sensei respectively. It was short-lived. He's not ready for this, Tsunade said raspily. He has no choice but to be. People are guaranteed to die. You're going to put the responsibility on him with no previous command experience? Once again, this is what is needed, Tsunade. Whatever scheme we go with, Kurenai won't be there. I can't run the risk of someone intentionally putting him in harm's way. And this will show the others that he isn't some monster but truly one of them. Conversely, Naruto will see he isn't as detested as he thinks he is. I know it's my fault I've allowed that impression to continue, but he'll see. Some are hesitant because he is so capable with minimal training from us and Orochimaru's interests, but I believe he'll sit in this chair one day. The path starts now. Your machinations of late have left a lot to be desired, but on this, I agree. Naruto thinks only a handful of people see him for who he is, some more simply tolerate him. That belief cannot continue. He needs to see that his comrades are not bigots or potential enemies. That he can depend on them and they will acknowledge his value. There aren't many ways to do that. This invasion offers an opportunity, Koharu supplied, surprising all in attendance. Then why not start preparing him sooner? Tsunade asked. He needed to increase his combat effectiveness to that of a respectable Jounin. From the reports I've seen, he's reached that level, and that's without the Kyuubi chakra. So, what, you think he's an S-class ninja? Tsunade asked sarcastically. No, don't be foolish. But I do believe, with adequate information and time to plan, he can kill one. The Iron Country trained samurai cursed, missing his target. He returned to his lord, only to be admonished for not considering the boy was going to report to the Hokage. It made sense, so he left the hotel immediately, his destination the Hokage Tower. He never made it, having seen the Uzumaki out and about. Deciding to do a little research, as the residents had been incredibly tight-lipped about anything retarding the boy. The samurai assumed it was because he wasn't a resident, and as such they didn't trust him. He stalked the Uzumaki, watching the boy purchase various fruits from a stand. The interaction was stilted between the operator and the ninja, both appearing to tolerate each other, and no more. He then watched as the boy entered a convenience store and exited with bottles of water, storing them in a scroll, along with the fruit before darting off. It was difficult to keep up without alerting the younger male, but the samurai managed it. He followed the Uzumaki onto a field, a likely training area that was inhabited by a copy of the redhead and 3 children. The children, 2 boys and a girl, were shins deep in a small pond going through hand-to-hand forms while the copy of the Uzumaki looked on. The one he'd followed handed the other the scroll and then disappeared in a puff of smoke. The samurai hid behind a tree and watched the kids train, and complain about the exercise. Boss, why do we have to do this? Konohamaru asked. It'll increase your speed and has none of the drawbacks of weights or resistance seals. This is how I trained when I was your age, and I certainly didn't have anyone around to make me a freaking pond, ya ingrates. That was cool, but my sandals are wet and it feels weird. Moegi chimed in. No one told you to wear your sandals, Naruto shot back. But I didn't want muddy feet. I made the bottom stone. That was met with a round of o's from the academy students. Soon the children switched to weapons training before the Uzumaki called the training session to a close and gave them the fruit and water. The samurai watched as the alleged demon chatted and joked with the kids before sending them on their way. The Uzumaki then whistled a tune before speaking. You can come out now. That shocked the samurai. He thought he'd gone undetected, but it was clear he was wrong. He walked purposefully, his navy blue kosode and matching hakama swaying in the wind. His katana strapped to his side, held in place by a white obi. The sword itself, very basic with a black cord wrapping, a standard tsuba and a black scabbard. He stopped just 3 meters shy of his target. Perfect distance for a speedy blade draw. One cut, one kill and it'd all be over. I am here on behalf of my lord, Kurosawa Ichiro-sama. He started and saw a flash of rage appear in the boy's eyes, the blue seeming colder now. He's alive? And he sent you here all the way from Ishval, told you to infiltrate a shinobi village with the goal of assassinating one of its ninja? He asked in disbelief. No, I accompanied my lord here. I infiltrated nothing. Where is he? The samurai was taken aback by the clipped, demanding tone. At the Shimmering Leaf, room 334. Not that it matters, I was ordered to cut you down and I will. Prepare yourself. Before he could even get in his stance, the samurai was violently toppled, being shoved into the ground and having a wave of chakra flood his system. He could turn his head to see a masked individual holding the Uzumaki back, single-handedly. The Uzumaki, having had his blade drawn and in a perfect position to stab him in the neck, had he not been saved. The Uzumaki was pushed back and made no attempt to attack again. The masked man buried his knee into the samurai, causing the man to grunt in discomfort. What you did is not only illegal but very foolish, Samurai-san. Please don't think I saved you, as where you're going will be much worse than the swift death you were about to receive. How? He placed you under an illusion before you ever said a word to him. When I whistled. Courtesy of a fellow clansperson. Though it wouldn't have fooled a shinobi, Naruto-kun. It needs more work. Everybody's a critic. Well, what do we do now? You dispel and let the original know Ichiro-san is being guarded so you won't be able to reach him. We'll see, the shadow clone said before dissolving into a cloud of smoke. I wasn't even facing the real one. The ANBU agent didn't respond, only tying up the swordsman and preparing him for transport to TNI. The real Naruto received the information, but it almost didn't register, as he was awash in painful feelings and memories. Kyo taking the brunt of the explosion on the bridge, being dead before he hit the water. Riku, buried to her neck, her face a vision of pain and sorrow as Raiga gloated over her corpse. Her death hurting all the more because it was Naruto's suggestion they split up for the day. Yagami barely having enough strength to drag them onto the small ship, often delirious before he made it to Tsunade and Shizen. The last he remembered of the man was a brief smile and a thanks. He slipped away while Naruto was black-outed. There was virtually no one Naruto hated. He'd been able to come to terms with his ostracization thanks to Bagheera, and while he disliked the villagers, he didn't hate them and left himself open to change if they did. He hated the old man, but that stemmed from his great sense of disappointment, betrayal, and the still nagging desire to be truly acknowledged by the one he once considered family. But Kurosawa Ichiro was a monster. He had enough and wanted more because having more than all those around him made him feel superior. He was a beast in fancy clothes. A cruel, vain, stupid fuck-up that got dozens of people killed. Naruto knew it was a high percentage of luck that allowed him to survive Ishval, and it had taken him months to deal with the guilt of being the only one to return. One source of solace having been the assumed death of the bastard that started it all, but he wasn't dead. And for all Naruto knew, he went on to become even worse. That thought made him push himself even harder as he ran across the rooftops in blinding speed. He didn't stop until he was a few buildings away from the hotel. It'd do him no good to just charge in, especially if the man was guarded. He stopped, taking calming breaths. His emotions were all over the place, and that'd leave him open to a mistake. He'd beaten or held off superior opponents because they were sloppy and overconfident. He could never let that be him. He looked around and couldn't pin where the protection detail may be, at least on the exterior of the building. A use of shadow clones and Hinges could possibly get him close, but only if he got in undetected. Tiring of the internal debate, Naruto selected his plan and was about to make his way to the hotel lobby until he felt the disturbance of an incoming shunshin and then a hand on his shoulder. The person that stopped him had a bandana Hittite, a jounin vest, and a samban in his mouth. Genma Shirani, one of the members of his father's protection detail. One trusted enough to learn a modified version of the Hiraishin. Naruto met the special Jounin's eyes, awaiting for him to speak first. Genma, however, was slightly taken aback. He'd seen those eyes before. After Obito, after Rin. The look of determination, and the promise of a reckoning. Genma hoped the kid didn't have his mother's temper and could be reasoned with. Kid, I know why you're here and I understand, but I can't allow you to do this. Just turn around and go about your day. Why is he even here? He got 3 of our ninja killed, he should be in a cell, not a suite. That is above my pay grade, I just know Sandaime-sama ordered me to protect him until instructed otherwise. Of fucking course, Naruto said, clenching his fist. That old man was running one of his games again instead of just nipping the problem in the bud. Give the Sandaime a break, trust me, there is more going on than we know, but that guy has not been living in luxury laughing at our losses. Naruto didn't respond. Questionable leadership accounted for, the old man does care about most of his forces. Naruto couldn't deny that fact with a straight face. We okay here? Another Jounin asked from behind. We're fine, Rado, right, Naruto? Yeah, we're fantastic. Good, good, Rado said in response. What about the package? Asked Genma. In his room, acting antsy. What Rado didn't know was that Ichiro was overflowing with participation, and when he heard his security details start shifting, he figured the first part of his plan had commenced. He only needed to get ready so he could confront the monster that ruined his life. He was finishing getting dressed, having managed to put a heavy vest over his kimono. It caused him great pain, but it'd be worth it. Ichiro left his room, his guards too focused on the outside threat to pay attention to him. His steps were slow, he foregoing his cane, for his showdown. He wouldn't demonstrate 1 ounce of weakness. He'd restore his pride and have his revenge. The thoughts of his victory dulled the pain he was feeling. Moments later he made it to the door at the lobby and took a deep breath before grasping a remote trigger connected to his vest, pressing down on a red button. Uzumaki! He yelled. I know you're here, Uzumaki! Come meet me, coward! He was immediately surrounded by an ANBU team. This vest has enough explosives to level several buildings. If you touch me, I'll release the trigger. Where is Uzumaki? Naruto, Genma, and Rado shunched in front of the man, about 3.5 meters back. Ichiro cackled in glee when he saw the red-haired boy standing before him. All foot traffic in the vicinity of the man's shriek stopped, seeing a heavily disfigured person shouting for that boy. I see that idiot samurai got you here. Did you kill him, demon? Ichiro watched as Naruto refused to respond. Answer your betters, boy. Did you kill him like you tried to kill me? Like a coward? Answer me or I'll let go of this trigger, I'm not playing. I'm sorry, did you say something? Naruto said, and all attending shinobi sweat dropped. Am I some kind of joke to you, you little monster? Am I? Look at what you did to me. You disfigured and crippled me, and all for that trash that didn't know its place. You're alive, you should have been thankful for that. Thankful? Your Hokage has taken everything from me, everything my family built, and it's all your fault. You should have died like the rest of those fodder ninja like I planned. Everyone felt a brief flash of killing intent, it disappearing as fast as it emerged. Those ninja had more guts, character, and worth than if you'd managed to live 100 lifetimes. You're wrong. All of you are only good for following the orders of your betters. That stupid samurai was the same. Just obedient dogs for your masters. If not for uppity ninja, I'd still be whole. This is all your fault. All involved were starting to tire of the man and his rantings. The problem was, while the ANBU knew containment jutsu, they weren't designed to contain explosions, certainly not ones powerful enough to level several buildings. Attempts to sever the hand might cause the pressure to lighten off the button, and genjutsu may be negated given the signs of agony that were seen in his body language. It's pretty clear he wants to kill Naruto, and there is no way they could allow that to happen. Not only because of his Jinchuriki status but due to the interests of each of the Sannin and the Sandaime. Each of the ANBU in attendance shuddered to think what would happen if the Uzumaki died to a civilian nutjob. Naruto, too, was aware things were escalating rapidly and something needed to be done. He was fortunate that he'd been preparing for a mad bomber and had developed a few jutsu to deal with explosions. He performed 5 hand seals, dragon sheep monkey horse snake and thought water style, great gummy sphere. The sphere of multi-textured liquid rapidly approached Ichiro and engulfed him before he could move. The ANBU had managed to get out of the way. He was shocked to be suspended in a jail-like prison, and while he could move somewhat, he couldn't exit out of the construct. He stared at the Uzumaki, shocked and irate. He couldn't believe his guaranteed victory was slipping away from him. He took a look at his cage. It had roughly a 6-meter diameter. He was confident it couldn't quell the explosion, and he'd likely take some of the villagers with him, Even if the Uzumaki got away, he'd be blamed for it. Without a second thought, he released the button and died at the epicenter of the blast. If he could have somehow seen his attempt, he'd have shrieked in displeasure, as the gel did contain the blast and the lack of sufficient oxygen for a fire to ignite. The ANBU had taken precautions and created mud walls when they witnessed the man release the trigger, and while they budged, they were not breached. More squads of ANBU showed up with the Sandaime and Tsunade in tow. As the Black Ops got the villagers under control, the Sandaime decided to question the special jounin on the scene. "Genma Rado, what happened?" "A 5-foot loon with a death wish, sir." Genma snarked but saw it was not received well by the aged Hokage. Ichiro-san had an alleged massive bomb with a remote trigger, a dead man's switch at that, and he threatened to use it here. Why? Chunin Uzumaki arrived and our shifting to confront him must have alerted Ichiro. He then made his way out here and boom. Why was Naruto-kun even here? How did he know to come here? The samurai following Ichiro-san. Apparently, he was given orders to attack Uzumaki-san. His attack was thwarted by an agent on the scene, but the Naruto he stopped was a shadow clone. He alerted us that Uzumaki-san was headed straight here, Hokage-sama, replied Kat. And you two stopped him from infiltrating the hotel, leaving your charge unprotected? We didn't think we had to protect him from himself, Hokage-sama. That was beyond our mandate, Rado said in Genma and his mutual defense. The Hokage reluctantly accepted the explanation. So, you stopped Naruto-kun from getting to him. I'm assuming he didn't fight you. No, Hokage-sama, Balth's special jounin replied. But Ichiro-san emerges from the hotel, an explosive strapped to him. What did he want? Pay back on the kid for the impromptu makeover. Guess he didn't feel as pretty as he once did, Genma quipped. And how was it resolved? Clearly he triggered the explosive, but what contained it? 4 mud walls were not a massive bomb. The kid had some water jutsu. Well, it looked like a water jutsu, but I'd never seen it before. Suspended Ichiro in it, and the man assumed it wouldn't be enough to prevent extensive damage. He was wrong. The Sandaime took the information in stride, cataloging all useful tidbits. Truthfully, Ichiro wasn't going to make it back to Ishval anyway. The delay was to cement the transfer of power before he ran into some bad luck on his way back. As such, there was no major loss as far as that goes. No property damage either. I'll have to count this as a failure in your mission's records. I hope you realize that. The jounin shrugged, either-minded, and Hiruzen couldn't blame them. Where is Naruto-kun? I don't know, Rado answered, and Genma shrugged again. Don't worry about it, I'll send someone to find him. You're both dismissed, Hiruzen said, and both jounin departed without a moment's pause. Hiruzen looked to see his ANBU calming the people down. He even saw Tsunade talking to some of the villagers, something that surprised him. She wasn't all that sociable to most people. He saw her finish up her conversation and return to him. She met her sensei's eyes and picked up on the unasked question. I was just curious what they were saying about the incident. Oh, and what did they say? That some mentally disturbed person essentially tried to hold them all hostage but was stopped by Naruto. Some even wondered if that's how they sounded, paranoid and cowardly, for being so scared of a 12-year-old. That's good. That's a biased sample. No one who thought poorly of Naruto was going to say it to me unless they wanted to swallow their teeth. Good point, Tsunade-chan. Let's return to my office, paywork awaits. Oh joy. She said sarcastically but followed nonetheless. As the day turned into the night, the uproar of near bombing had turned into quiet rumor-mongering. Those brave souls in attendance with the power of hindsight and liquid courage spoke about their harrowing encounter. Naruto Uzumaki was on the lips of many, but the heir of the Uzumaki clan was none the wiser as he sat in his retreat, Majila sleeping peacefully in his lap. He was left with his thoughts and her soft snores as he stroked her back gently. A presence made itself known as she entered his rooftop garden, but she remained quiet, taking a seat next to Naruto. She looked around at his collection of plants, impressed at the diversity and the overall health. It was calming, peaceful in a way not much in their world was, and she understood why he'd come here to be alone. The silence was comfortable, the two at ease with each other, as if they'd known each other for years. As serene as the silence was, she came here for a point and initiated speaking. I heard you had something of a rough day. You could say that. Want to talk about it? I don't even know where to begin. Oh, I fall outside of the normal command structure during wartime, so that's awesome. I may be made Chunin commander, as if that's not laughable. Why would that be laughable? I've just been promoted, sensei. Also, I'm that kid. No one is going to want to listen to me and will think I've gotten the position through favoritism or something. Oh, and this little conflict I'd be leading people into only exists because a collection of overpowered psychos want to ripe the QB from my gut, and it is guaranteed some if not many of us will die. And if that wasn't enough, that gutless tyrant had been alive this entire time and could have done God knows what in retaliation for me trying to kill him. You got that all out of your system? Kurenai asked. I'm not throwing a temper tantrum, it's all true. No, you perceive it as true. Sometimes I forget you're still 12. Only for a few more months. Naruto muttered, but Kurenai ignored him. I'll concede, you being put in a leadership position given all that has happened isn't ideal, and it is something the Sandaime should have considered while holding you back. No one wants war, but there have been tensions between the 5 great villages since the end of the last war. But this is partially for your protection. He can have you assigned to a foolish risk. It isn't pleasant to think about, but your value is greater than almost any other single shinobi because you protect us all. As far as the prejudice of the shinobi corps, it isn't as widespread as you think it is, at least not anymore. There was a time many of us were cautious or afraid. Some have experienced the power of a Jinchuriki, many have felt the power of the QB, so leaving the control and containment to a child was not easy to accept. But eventually the fear passed and shame was left. You hadn't done anything, but many avoided you anyway, even knowing you provide a vital service, and some continued to avoid you out of that shame. Those who didn't could see you were a very sweet boy that was dealt a bad hand. You may never get a collective apology for how we treated or allowed you to be treated, but many have long come to see you as your own person and our comrade. The Akatsuki goals are of their own choosing and they are a threat. To say you're somehow responsible is stupid and you know better, so I won't waste any more time on it. And as for this Ichiro person, I know you hate him. Even with him dead you still likely hate him, but you need to let it go. I can't. Why not? Because he made the lives of his people worse for no other reason than it benefited him. He had the power to change things and he didn't, he just watched them suffer and did nothing. People like that I hate. Must have felt good to strike out at him in Ishval, huh? I guess. And today, you foiled his plans and watched as his scheme was his undoing. That was nice, right? Not really, Naruto said, shaking his head. Oh? Why do you think that is? Because revenge is empty and doesn't change anything. Maybe. I've seen people lose themselves to revenge and I've seen others get it, and it helped resolve their issues. If it isn't an obsession, a little revenge is fine, I think. But you didn't get revenge. So then why did it feel empty? Naruto asked, looking at the red-eyed woman. I think you could slay every person like this Ichiro person in the elemental nations and it wouldn't matter. Why? Because the person you're really angry at, the one you really want to hurt, is the Sandaime. You see his worst qualities in people like Ichiro. Those who use their power solely for their benefit and watch their subordinates suffer. Like he did with you. I think there is a part of you so angry at him that if you hadn't suppressed it you'd be blinded with rage and hurt. But people like him, when out of missions you can stop them. You aren't powerless nor are you subjected to their rule. I already know I hate the old man. Yes, but you always sound divorced from it. You know the emotion is there but you've walled it off. That's not good, Naruto. It means you can never really get past everything. You'll only think you have until something taps into that latent hatred. Naruto chuckles. Orochimaru Shisho asked me if I could forgive him the night before we left. What did you say? That I didn't know. If things had been different then maybe. I guess I was lying. No, it just means you're as complex as everyone else. I'll tell you, like I told Asuma, you don't need to forgive the Sandaime to resolve things with him, but as long as you carry around that hatred and that hurt it'll be an invisible weight on you. I'm not sure I know how to resolve things with him. I've gotten all I need from him. Really? Kurenai asked, voice laced with skepticism. Because I believe if you think really, really hard there's one question at the center of this, one answer you need you don't have. The Genjutsu mistress finished and then departed, after ruffling Naruto's hair. The Uzumaki would spend the rest of the night in his garden, thinking about his sensei's words and so much else. Chapter 10, Germain's Interlude Vol 1. Raza looked at his children. They were set to leave for Konoha today. The invasion of Ame would begin a week after their and the other Suna forces' arrival. He watched them with a mixture of pride, worry, and regret. All three had matured after the Chunin exams, and he'd seen fit to promote each. Temari worked on her over-reliance on her war fan. Kankuro got better at operating multiple puppets. Gaara had demonstrated the largest change. No longer was he lost to his own madness, an infliction borne by Raza's choices, the Kazekage lamented. He trained harder, working on his endurance and taijutsu. His sand techniques improved and he had even started making amends to the villagers. It was not easy to send them to a war zone. He was their leader and truly hadn't treated them as his children, but he had a father's worry all the same. His children needed to be strong, Suna needed to be strong. Everyone needed him to be stronger still. Strong enough to be near heartless to his children, sacrifice his wife and keep Suna afloat with no support from the daimyo. He'd done it for so long, the cold veneer eventually just became what he was. No one liked him, and it was arguable no one truly respected Raza the man. They endured Raza the Kazekage because they had no choice, because no one could lead Suna as he had. He wanted to bridge that gap. He wanted to be a family again, to embrace his children as a father should. They managed to grow closer to each other, and he hoped they had space for him. But he may never see them again. There was no guarantee they'd return or that the invasion would be successful. So, why could he only give commands and tell them to do Suna proud? Why couldn't he tell them he was proud and loved them dearly? That he was a cold man because he believed it to be the only way to accomplish anything, to keep his village viable? The loss of his wife, by his own design, only exacerbated his embrace of a facade. Because the guise of the Kazekage had been the only way he'd known how to act for so long, and it couldn't change in a day, on a whim. The trio left, none referring to him as father but as Kazekage-sama. Perfectly respectful and accurate. That's what he'd been to them, and they may depart from the world thinking he only saw them as weapons and tools, as reflections on Suna's might and potential. The children of a monster, an unfeeling man that would do anything for power. In the quietest parts of his mind he'd admit his jealousy for Minato Namikaze. He'd ask, why was he so beloved? Didn't he sacrifice his child? Didn't he do all he could to keep Konoha strong? Were they really so different? To Raza's mind, they weren't. And yet, Minato was respected in every nation, every hidden village. Iwa hated him, feared him, but respected him. Raza was just a wielder of a second-tier Kekkai Genkai and leader of the weakest of the Big Five, only Kiri's civil war changing the designation. So many burdens, so many decisions. But Suna was recovering, they were gaining their strength and pride back. Just a few more years and everything would be worth it. A few more years. Orochimaru led Naruto to a secret lagoon Tsunade, and she would visit when they were younger. She relished the opportunity to indulge in a brief respite. One of her major plans had recently come together. Naruto also needed it. Since he'd been informed of his leadership position, and the assassination attempt by that lowly worm, Naruto had been pushing himself harder and harder in his training. His only real breaks were missions, as even if his physical body was resting, he still had clones undertaking some task for him. She could appreciate the diligence, but he'd been nearing a burnout at the exact worst time for one. So, she requested he join her and forbade any training for the rest of the time before the invasion. The timing worked out perfectly. He'd been working so hard, he didn't remember today was his birthday. His teammates and friends were planning something at the recently finished Uzumaki Manor, but she'd have him all to herself before then. She hadn't told her student where they would be going, only that he'd need swimwear. As they made the final leg of their trip, she found it adorable how he tried not to stare, her sheer purple kimono with red accents stopping at the middle of her thigh and showing her curves. Such a gentleman, she'd have to rid him of that once he was older. They came upon the lagoon, and Naruto had to admit it was picturesque, clear water shaded by tall trees. It was quiet and peaceful. He understood why Tsunade and Orochimaru Shursho would want to keep it a secret. That, and their other teammate was a self-described super pervert. Speaking of, Naruto tried his best not to perv on Orochimaru, as she rid herself of her kimono to show the black and purple two-piece bikini she was wearing. He prayed his hormones wouldn't betray him in the immediate future. Naruto heard a splash, signaling Orochimaru had entered the water. He removed his blue shirt and sandals, leaving only his orange swim trunks. As he prepared to get into the water, he noticed there was no signs of the burns he endured when fighting Deidara. The Mad Bomber and Sasori of the Red Sands attacked his and Team 7 as they were returning from their mission in the Land of Snow. It was Kakashi's keen senses that allowed them to avoid the initial ambush, but they couldn't escape the fight. Both teams of Konoha Nin were able to avoid the initial blast thanks to Kakashi. He'd been alerted to two upcoming presences, his senses as sharp as any Inuzuka's. Both teams tensed, but not for the same reasons. Team Kurenai had trained and planned in order to take out any pair of Akatsuki members, all but the leader and his angel. Orochimaru made it clear retreat and avoidance was the only tactic for them. None of their plans accounted for an additional team. It could make things easier or harder. Kakashi knew who those two were, knew how significant a threat even one could be. Fighting them and protecting his comrades would be near impossible, especially as he was going to tell his team something they weren't going to like. "Team, you need to stay back, these two are beyond you. No arguments," he snapped before Sasuke and Kiba could levy their complaints. He understood not wanting to be sidelined, but this wasn't going to be the kind of fight that allowed for mistakes. One wrong move meant death. You ruined my art, Deidara said from the sky, riding a clay owl. No need for all the talk, let's just grab the fox and go, Sasori said, having arrived on the clearing. They'd chosen well, no trees or cover anywhere near. 2 long-distance fighters, one with aerial superiority. Kakashi immediately uncovered his Sharingan as Naruto created 20 shadow clones. 10 of the clones, along with the original and Shikamaru, dashed towards Sasori, leaving the rest with Kurenai, Shino and Kakashi. Rasengan, one of the clones, roared as it pounced on Sasori. It hit the puppeteer's shell but was taken out by its tail at the same time. Now the real Sasori was revealed. Naruto thought the man-turned-puppet looked smug as he retrieved a storage scroll and unsealed a new puppet. The Sandai Mikazakage, just as Orochimaru said he'd go for. She fought with and against Sasori and said the man had a pattern of escalation. Because of that, there was opportunity for weaker but forewarned combatants to take him out if they planned well and kept sharp. The puppet charged toward Naruto and Shikamaru at great speed, but the Uzumaki met its charge with one of his own, blade drawn. He blocked the poison blade of the Kazekage puppet and performed a replacement with a clone when Sasori unleashed the dozens of hands sealed within the Kazekage's arm. The arms continued toward the real Naruto, but several of the shadow clones were ready. Wind style, crescent blade barrage. The futon jutsu performed by expelling sharp wind blades from the mouth in successive fashion. They tore through the wooden hands and Naruto saw Sasori start to get annoyed as he pulled the Kazekage back. The puppet then shot forward the iron sand the Kazekage was known for. That was the signal, both Naruto and Shikamaru knew. 2 shadow clones performed 2 distinct jutsu, one water style, torrent blast, a Suiton jutsu that forms and compresses water chakra in the stomach before expelling it with enough force to break bone and render one unconscious. The second performed lightning style, focus bolt, a Raiten jutsu that concentrates the chakra at the tips of the index finger before emitting a thin, concentrated burst of lightning toward a target. The 2 jutsu combined and hit the oncoming iron sand, momentarily disrupting Sasori's magnetic control. The real Naruto was busy preparing his own jutsu. He could have gone with several alternatives, but this just had the dual purposes of destroying the puppet and distracting Sasori. Lava style, burning geyser. Molten rock shot up beneath the Kazekage puppet, the intense heat destroying it. Just for the briefest of moments Sasori displayed his shock. They hadn't known the Jinchuriki had a bloodline, having no reports of him using that type of jutsu. Sasori attempted to retrieve more scrolls but found he couldn't move. Multiple string-like formation. Multiple clones that had surrounded Sasori said. Their chakra capacity making sure even the S-rank ninja couldn't simply overpower them. Ninja art, shadow sewing jutsu. Shikamaru muttered and sent several shadow threads towards Sasori's chakra core, piercing it multiple times. The former Suna ninja was no more. Naruto looked across the clearing. Deidara was down, and Shino was approaching him with a chakra suppression tag. Naruto watched as the blonde bomber had a grin, something so wrong given the circumstance. As he was passed out, Naruto got memories of the fight. His clone informed Kakashi of Deidara's weakness for lightning as they watched the Iwa Nin take to the skies. Suddenly, Deidara started hurtling toward the ground. Another clone realized it was Kurenai-sensei. Due to his hatred for Itachi, the blonde had been developing a resistance to optical genjutsu, but Kurenai-sensei was a master of the art and focused on the other senses, like the inner ear, which affected balance. The clones tossed kunai in the air, multiplying them with the kunai shadow clone jutsu and following it up with the lightning style, chain lightning jutsu. Kakashi must have taken his eyes off Deidara for a moment, which is why he missed the swap with the clone. When Naruto returned to consciousness, everything hurt. He could tell he was healing, but the burns were unpleasant, and he felt like he may have broken or fractured ribs. Being clutched tightly by the talons of some clay bird was not helping matters. He was high up, extremely high up. This was not an ideal scenario, and he had to play things just right so he could survive. Naruto ran through what he could do. He could move his hands, but too much movement would alert Deidara. He needed to end this as fast as possible. He could see his team trailing behind him and hoped they were close enough to catch him. Slowly, gently, and ignoring the pain, Naruto performed the hand sign for creating a Fuin Bunshin and had it appear right beside Deidara. The original Naruto immediately summoned a kunai, ran lightning chakra through it and stabbed it into the bird, causing it to falter and release him. The Fuin clone managed to apply the chakra suppression seal, so both ninja were falling helplessly through the sky. Naruto passed out before it hit the ground. He was told Kakashi caught him before he could hit the ground. A face full of water brought Naruto out of his thoughts as he sputtered in reaction. The laughter of his sensei filled his ears. He used his shirt to wipe his face before looking at his attacker, questioningly. Kukuku, you were thinking too hard. The point of this is to relax. Or am I not good company, Naruto-kun? No, that's not it you are. Sorry, just thinking back to when Sasori and Deidara attacked us. That was well executed. Even if that sacrificial idiocy you're inflicted with flared up. Orochimaru said, wading in the water. Naruto didn't respond. The fight may have looked easy, Kiba sure seemed to believe so, but given their copious amount of information, the team's abilities and the planning abilities of a Nara and an Aburame, there were just too many contingencies in place not to overwhelm an enemy that didn't expect you to be much a threat. Naruto finally entered the water, glad it was relatively warm. Orochimaru turned her back as Naruto adopted a mischievous smile. She splashed him, that was a declaration of war. If he didn't retaliate, she couldn't really respect him, he reasoned. What he was about to do was because of her, she was sorta asking for it. He immediately became uncomfortable with that line of thought but persisted to execute his revenge. Naruto cupped his hands together, leaving a narrow space between. Channeling some Sueten chakra into his hands, he forced a low-powered and tiny stream of chakra through the opening, dousing the back of Orochimaru's head. She swiftly turned to her apprentice, and saw him whistling while looking everywhere but at her. She smiled. So, you want to challenge the snake Sannin? She spoke with false menace. I'm sorry, what do you mean, Shursho? Naruto hamming up his innocent act, but a smile kept appearing on his face, a sign of his guilt. Oh, my apprentice has grown arrogant. Do you think you're the only one to master all 5 nature types? Of course not, Orochimaru-sama. I just did it before adolescence is all. He said innocently, but a hint of smugness laced his words. He had to swim out of the way of oncoming water wave. And several more after that. Kukuku, is retreating all you can do? I thought you had more fight than that, how disappointed. Orochimaru was interrupted as she felt pulled underwater. Once submerged, she saw it was a localized whirlpool that drug her under. It dissipated and she was free to move once more. Orochimaru cut through the water at impossible speeds, startling Naruto. She almost got him, attempting to grab him underwater, but Naruto used his chakra to submerge him further, and then created more distance from his mentor. Undaunted, Orochimaru continued her chase, Naruto managing to narrowly avoid her several times. However, eventually his luck ran out, and he was in the snake Sannin's embrace. Nowhere to run, she whispered in his ear, sending a thrill to his core. Can we talk about this? About you attacking your dear teacher from behind? I was framed. We're alone. That's what they want you to think. Oh, really? And who is this they? Orochimaru didn't get a verbal response. Instead, she felt Naruto grab onto her and go underwater once again. She didn't know what to make of her student's newfound assertiveness until she saw a most displeasing vision. Conan, hovering above them, and if she were here it was more than likely Pain was here as well. This wasn't good. She watched as Naruto made dozens of clones and each began weaving hand signs. Water style. Water lance was the jutsu being performed, and several pressurized jets of water launched into the sky, but Aim's angel avoiding them deftly. That was not unexpected as the clones continued to weave hand signs. Those jets became inky black clouds that rained oil on the paper ninjutsu user. Water style, Onyx Rain. The manipulation is similar to the Night Aim's water style, Bite of the explosive water dragon, and that requires a secondary manipulation of a pre-existing Sueten jutsu. One Naruto emerges from the water, his hands forming the tiger seal, and then waves of fire spew from his mouth. Fire style, Sea of Flames requires the user to store air in his cheeks and expel the chakra from there so it is possible to inhale and continue the process. As the flow can be slightly uneven, it gives the look of waves. Unexpectedly, a chubby orange-haired ninja with piercings throughout his face stood in front of the fire jutsu and absorbed it. The well-fed Nin was taken off guard when the Kusanagi emerged from underwater, even piercing the Naruto in front of him before going through his head. The body collapsed, and the clone dispelled into a cloud of smoke. Konan was now on the shore, her paper jutsu ineffective with her covered in oil, at least for the time being. 5 more bodies now appear on the water. Naruto Uzumaki, come with me and I may spare the traitor, the one with spiky orange hair said. The response was a numerous amount of tentacles attempting to entrap each of the ninja present. They all took to the air to avoid them, leaving them vulnerable. Several hidden shadow snakes break through the water's barrier and wrap around the multi-faced shinobi, intending to pull him down. Instead, the snakes are severed by his bladed tail, and the remaining bodies are grasped by his hands. He gave a powerful pull and Orochimaru was now on the surface. As the Azura path pulled Orochimaru up, the long-haired human path was closing the distance, intent on taking the soul of the snake summoner. It arrived before she could react, hand around her throat, but when the ninjendo technique was activated, Orochimaru turned into mud. The human path didn't have time to consider its folly as its feet were encased in ice and a kunai with an exploding tag appeared in front of it, going off without leaving it any chance of escape. 2 bodies were down, and while not angered, Pain was not amused. Both Orochimaru and Naruto were running out of air, they'd have to go to the surface soon. They were outnumbered and Orochimaru was quickly putting together these bodies may have some shared abilities given the Rinnegan each wielded. She had little in the way of information, outside of Pain being able to repel anything that came near him. It wasn't good, but she could turn things around, she had to. The Deva Path watched as 2 olive-green snakes, of impressive size, came from below. One headed toward the animal path, another toward the Azura path. Almighty push, the path spoke and the large summons were forced back, hitting several trees before dispelling. Running out of air and options, Orochimaru and Naruto came to the surface, each behind one of the paths, swords drawn. She chose the animal path, Naruto chose the Azura path. The Azura path's tail pierced Naruto before his sword could make contact, which resulted in smoke. The animal path deflecting the Kusanagi but not able to avoid the follow-up strike, decapitating it. Every Naruto left underwater came to the surface and began attacking. Most of the remaining clones were dispelled by the Asura path's projectiles and multi-arm attacks. The real Naruto tried to cut the Deva path, even managing to cleave into the chakra rod the path generated, but he was too slow to avoid the next one, as he took a stab to his right leg before being kicked in his midsection, flying away due to the force. The Azura path was now engaging with Orochimaru directly, her Kusanagi doing well but not managing to put the path down. Without warning, she was stabbed in the back at the near her left shoulder and stabbed in the stomach. She hit the water, barely managing enough chakra to stay on the surface before she was kicked in the face by the Azura path hard enough to make her flip to her back. She looked to see the 3 bodies Naruto, and she had managed to defeat, had returned. Naruto saw one of the paths collecting the bodies and then throwing them into a thing before they returned fully healed. They were in trouble. He didn't have much time to think, creating a whirlpool, much more powerful than he had earlier. Orochimaru sunk to the bottom, taking advantage of the delayed death strike. Naruto summoned dozens of clones again and performed the ninja art, smokescreen jutsu. Naruto sent a clone underwater to get Orochimaru, removing the rods from her body as the real Naruto did the same to his own. The Deva path was not bothered by the smokescreen. Activating his jutsu once again, he blew it away, and from the sounds of it multiple clones, as he heard them poof. When the smokescreen cleared, he saw the Jinchuriki and his master, both on their last legs. The surroundings were quiet, only the sounds of the birds chirping filled the area. The paths watched as the injured pair returned to their feet and made a desperate charge, but the damage had taken its toll. Both were stabbed multiple times, but still alive. The Deva path activated his universal pull technique and Orochimaru helplessly flew toward him. With grim satisfaction, the Azura path plunged a chakra rod into her heart, killing the turncoat. Her final punishment for thinking she could defy God wouldn't be her death, but knowing she failed to protect the motivation for her treachery, the Jinchuriki would die regardless. The disruption from the rod caused a shift in reality, and all the paths saw it wasn't Orochimaru they killed but the Naraka path. They all performed the Genjutsu dispel technique but felt it tried to be cast again. It was confusing, nothing was around to cast it. Nothing but almighty push! The Deva path yelled and expended a good deal of chakra to focus his attack. Soon he heard numerous poofs but the end of the birds chirping. It was an auditory genjutsu, and given the amount of clones, the paths reasoned it likely came from the Uzumaki. They had no information on him wielding any genjutsu of note, and the lapse in intel had come with a cost. The rest of the paths were fed up, mimicking the real Nagato's emotional state. He saw Conan return, free of the oil and ready to fight once more, but he instructed the paper clone to dispel. He wanted to do this, for their blasphemous actions had arisen his ire. Deep in the forest sat Orochimaru and Naruto. She'd healed given her special replacement technique, and Naruto was almost back to full capacity due to the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto got confirmation his genjutsu had been disabled and pain would be coming for them soon. The genjutsu, what he called genjutsu, Chidori, was him thumbing his nose at Kakashi, who claimed only a Sharingan wielder could perform his Chidori when Naruto offered a jutsu trade. He was thankful Kurenai-sensei had increased the team's genjutsu training, including how to layer illusions and how to attack multiple senses. He welcomed the development as it was helping end his blush. Orochimaru had come out of her replacement technique completely naked and hadn't seemed fully aware of it until it was pointed out. The Sannin made a mental note to include some seduction training so he wouldn't fall apart at the sight of a naked woman. Shursho, they ended my genjutsu. Were they fooled long enough to take one of them out? Yeah, the one that healed the others, but it pissed them off, so there's that. We need to increase our numbers and buy time. I know you hate it, but use the dash. Edo Tensei? No, I'm totally fine with it. Naruto created 2 young release shadow clones with control seals implanted in them and retrieved the DNA samples he had. He performed the jutsu just as Orochimaru was doing the same. 2 caskets emerged, while Naruto's clones just transformed into his 2 revived nin. When the techniques were done, Deidara and Kisame stood beside the Shodai and the Nidaime Hokage. Naruto gave Deidara some of the special clay the missing ninja died with and gazed Kisame Samehada, and the 2 took off, one in the air and one on the ground. The first 2 Hokage simply looked at Orochimaru, and he in bemusement. "You should have never created that jutsu, brother. I shouldn't have done a lot of things, but it's too late to change that." "You Uzumaki, why am I here?" Tobirama said, having sensed the boy's lineage through his chakra. He was clearly an Uzumaki and also a Jinchuriki. "Okay, quick rundown. There is this organization hunting down Jinchuriki like myself. Side note, we're all pretty much treated like total shit, so thanks for that, Hashirama-sama. Anyway, the leader attacked my Shirsho and is extremely powerful. He holds the Rinnegan, the eyes of the Sage of 6 Paths, but appears to have separated his abilities into 6 different bodies. Each body has an ability. One can create advanced weaponry, another has control over attractive and repellent forces. One can absorb chakra and renders ninjutsu useless. We don't know about the other 2. Orochimaru added and then gave the physical descriptions for the ones they had information on. "Let's go, brother," Tobirama said, which surprised Hashirama. "And why would I do that?" "Open your senses. Clearly the boy is Mito's successor, and we are near Konoha. Who is to say this man won't target the village? Besides, the strapling is injured and can't fight as he is." Although he knew how serious this was, his life was on a line. Naruto wanted to justify his injury to his idol but realized this wasn't the time. "Fine, brother." As soon as he answered, the forest shook with the sounds of high-yield explosives. That caused the Senju brothers to depart immediately. Both Orochimaru and Naruto stayed where they were, their choosing to take the break the Edo Tensei allowed them. The snake Sannin's mind fast at work for a counter-strategy, and every moment she could have to plan the better. While Naruto was filling the returned Hokage on the situation, Deidara had come across the animal path, who was on top of bird summons. The explosion release users wasted no time attempting to pepper the path with his explosive creations, but the bird was agile in the air and avoided direct damage. The 2 flew above the trees and frustrated sat in for the once dead shinobi, so much so he forewent any offense, only focusing on speed to close the distance. Once he did, he leapt off the clay bird and using his body exploded in the air. It took out the bird, but the animal path jumped off its summon right before impact and landed on a multi-headed dog. When Deidara reformed, he continued to lay explosive after explosive, but it only increased the dog's power as it grew more and more heads. The animal path summoned another animal, a rhino, to accompany the dog as they tried to keep Deidara occupied, at least until the human path could arrive, as it was rapidly approaching. The animals were dealing damage while the dog absorbed all of Deidara's offense, much to his annoyance. The bomb enthusiast started to flood the area with his C4 explosives and watched as not even the dog's summons could handle it. The animal path, too, had succumbed, but the area of effect was limited and the human path had not been infected and managed to remove the Edo's soul before it could explode again. However, the path did not avoid the wood spike that pierced its head. The Deva path looked as the Azura path lay headless. The Samehada interrupted the chakra receivers long enough for Kisame to cleave its head off. Until that point, the former Kiri swordsman's attacks had been rendered ineffective, the Preta path absorbing all he could muster while Deva and Azura retaliated. He immediately pushed the sword away from the undead ninja. Kisame started weaving hand signs again for another Swait Unjutsu, his water shark bomb, and just like times previous it was absorbed, but Preta was kicked back by the Shodai Hokage. "Almighty push," the Deva path said, avoiding the attack of the second Hokage as he sent the man out of the lagoon. Kisame followed suit, now pressing the attack, having abandoned his ninjutsu. It was clear the man wasn't as good in unarmed combat as the Deva path managed to stab him several times with the chakra rod. The Nidaime returned and the pair were attacking in tandem, starting to overwhelm the path. The Deva path performed his jutsu again, repelling the Suetun masters as, through their shared vision, he saw the Preta path get its face caved in by the Shodai. 5 seconds, the Nidaime said, but the Deva path didn't react. All 3 Edo Tensei started peppering the lone path with various water jutsu, managing to dodge most of them until he was cornered and had to perform the almighty push again. As soon as he did, the 3 ninja were on him. He was getting attacked from multiple sides, blocking 2 strikes left him open for a third. The attacks were relentless and the path was growing increasingly frustrated. A hard left straight from Kisame sent him flying back, but he welcomed the space. Skidding out of the lagoon, onto dry land, the Deva path performed his most powerful technique, Chibaku Tensei. The surrounding area became overturned as the extreme pull of the gravity technique took hold. Each ninja tried to fight the attractive force but couldn't, and soon each were entombed into a small satellite. The chakra used was straining enough that Nagato faltered, causing a short disconnection from his path. He recovered and made his way toward Orochimaru and Naruto, at least where he'd assumed they'd be. Orochimaru and Naruto saw the moon-like object being created and how their remaining Edo Tensei were encased within. They didn't know how many more paths were left, but they did know they would be on their way. Neither were in perfect shape. Orochimaru had expelled a good bit of chakra with the summoning and restoring herself. Naruto's leg healed, mostly, but he still didn't have his full mobility. They were low on time and needed a strategy. "You should leave," the Uzumaki said. "He wants me alive so I may be able to buy some time for reinforcements to arrive. If they haven't arrived already, it means something is happening within the village. Still doesn't change, he only wants to kill one of us. Immediately, he only wants to kill one of us immediately. I have faith you'd come rescue me. Flattery at a time like this? Kukuku, I may blush. I take that to mean you aren't leaving?" Naruto asked. "No, I'm not leaving, so get ready." Naruto wasted no more time trying to convince her to leave. Instead, he began centering himself. He didn't have a foolproof way to utilize the Kyuubi's chakra, but he'd found success in not thinking about it as a matter of control but an experience to endure. Similar to a surfer's relationship to the wave. The metaphor became something of a mantra, and as Naruto delved deep into the chakra core, he reminded himself to embrace the wave, to be one with it. He repeated it over and over as he drew more and more of the Kyuubi's chakra out, going out of the zero-tailed state to form an initial cloak. One tail became two, embrace the wave, he thought, as two became three, and he stopped pulling. "Must you repeat that insipid phrase every time you abuse my power? Germain? You know good damn well my name is not Germain. I'm kinda busy here, and if you just tell me your name I wouldn't have to guess, Jiro." The Kyuubi scoffed and said nothing more, ending the conversation just in time for the Deva path to arrive, alone. He pulled both Konoha ninja toward him, grabbing each by the neck and slamming them down. Naruto swatted the hand away with the tail. Orochimaru turned into mud while the real Kunoichi darted toward Pain from his flank, Kusanagi gleaming in the sunlight. He let go of Naruto and created a chakra rod to meet the legendary sword. The rod was cleaved in two, but it halted its momentum enough to spin away from the next swipe. He grabbed Naruto's wrist, narrowly avoiding a Rasengan and tossing the boy away. He repelled Orochimaru when she attempted to attack his blind side, and she slammed into a tree. The Jinchuriki was back, taking furious swipes, but Pain defended the attack, kicking Naruto in the stomach in response, and then hitting him in the jaw. He didn't expect the Jinchuriki to absorb the blow, nor to grab his arm and proceeding to kick the Rinnegan wielder in the ribs. Pain was taken off his feet due to the force, which was amplified by a pair of great breakthrough jutsu performed by teacher and student. Pain landed, feet first, on a tree and kicked off. Orochimaru performed the hidden shadow snake hands jutsu, planning to stall his charge, but Pain avoided them and continued forward. There was a clang of sword against chakra rod. Pain attempting several thrusts while Orochimaru would deflect them or dodge. Pain overcommitted on one such attack, and the snake's Sannin rotated away from the attacking arm, swirling the Kusanagi behind her back before bringing it up, aiming to slash at his face. He quickly repelled her again but sent a chakra rod toward in as well. Naruto swatted the rod and re-engaged. His body was able to handle this much of the Kyuubi's chakra for long, and he felt his body starting to give under the strain, which made keeping calm and centered exponentially more difficult. He charged, ignoring the Pain, trying his best to land a significant strike on Pain. But he was outmatched, and Pain began to batter him, punching combinations connecting to Naruto's face before he was knocked away again and found his stomach pierced with a chakra rod, ending his bijou cloak. He then repeated the tactic Naruto interfered with as Orochimaru charged at him again. Without her student to block the rod, she too found herself impaled by Pain's weapon. The path didn't show it, but he was inwardly relieved. He could feel the Edo Tensei trying to break free, and he had been pushed harder than he expected. He walked over to the Uzumaki, in a different lifetime someone he may have looked at as family, but now a means to an end. The boy battered and bleeding, his left eye swollen shut and barely hanging on to consciousness. He picked him up by his neck, making sure not to do any more damage. "This may mean very little to you, but your sacrifice will bring about a lasting peace," he said as he darted off with the boy, the snake's Sannin helpless to stop him. "It's unfortunate. Had the Kyuubi been sealed into some else, I could have used someone of your talents. I get why she betrayed us for you." He saw the boy's lone functioning eye widen. "You didn't know? Had I agreed to find a way to keep you alive after the extraction, she wouldn't have left. But I'm a god and I don't make deals." "Why, you're no more a god than I am a giant," Naruto struggled to say. "You don't need to believe me, your opinion doesn't matter. Naruto really detested this smug prick and wanted nothing more than to shut him up permanently. However, the rod in his gut made molding chakra near impossible. Suddenly, Naruto felt the grip around his neck tighten as pain began moving faster, but after a minute, the path simply collapsed as if its strings had been cut. Naruto lost the battle for his consciousness as he laid on the forest floor. Chapter 11, Ultralight Beam. Nagato. Konan spoke. She rarely used that name, the name of a weak boy too afraid of his own power and content to lean on his friends. The name of a failure, naive to the truths of this world. He'd cast off that name and all the weaknesses attached to it, but for her, his one remaining friend, he'd still acknowledge it as she was there before he transcended into the god of this miserable world. What is it, Konan? Itachi, Kisame, Deidara, Sasori. All dead, all defeated, going after the same target. Konoha knows, and thanks to Orochimaru, the Jinchuriki was prepared to face them. I have no doubt he'd be similarly prepared for Kakuzu and Haiden. Add to that, we have an epidemic that affects only our shinobi. In mission, mortality rates are rising, some are even getting sick from training. I don't see these as coincidences. Neither do I. They could have done this thinking it would soften me up, make me easier to kill. Or Konoha is planning an all-out invasion, one our people are not prepared for. Sacrifices are necessary, Konan. You couldn't expect that sacrifice would be on everyone but us. Sacrifices that led to something better. We are no longer hidden. At least one major village knows our plans and have all but crippled our efforts. It would be safe to assume Suna knows. Iwa hasn't looked into our real motives because we're too valuable, but they could. Maybe this is a sign we should rethink our plan. No. This is the only way. According to who? This isn't even our plan, it's his. Some stranger that came to us claiming to be Madara Uchiha. We wanted to save Ahmed, remember? And have we? Are their lives better now than under Hanzo? Are they happy under the protection of a god? Ahmed, in the grand scheme, doesn't matter. I have to be able to shed these attachments. Borders only limit us, allow us to see other people as somehow fundamentally unlike us, an outgroup. It may have been Madara's plan, but it has a greater chance of working than Jiraiya's way. He preached understanding to us, and then trained the most prolific killer in modern shinobi history. Would you sacrifice even me? No one is immune from this, not even me. If Konan was dismayed by his answer, she didn't show it. You may be fine with the potential losses, but what about the reality that an invasion puts the entire plan at risk? Nagato, they may be able to even kill you. Not any single Konoha ninja, but all 3 Sannin have returned, and they have several jounin of note. If you die, the plan dies with you. Then, we stop the invasion from ever happening. How do you plan on doing that? By giving Konoha something else to focus on. First, we'll take the Jinchuriki, as they won't be expecting me to come for him personally. Then we'll release the boy's lineage. I'm sure Iwa would love to be able to torture the Yellow Flash's son. That'll spark a war, but will be a minor concern compared to Iwa. And if Iwa gets involved, Kuma will too, just for the chance to topple Konoha. You want to start another great ninja war? I thought the point of this was to end all the wars. It was, but I can't do that if we don't get the Jinchuriki. War is great for producing S-rank ninja and missing ninja that become disillusioned. The villages will be too depleted to stop us once we refill our ranks. I'll contact Kakuzu and Haiden for a special assignment. We leave for Konoha in 3 days. The Deva path left, Nagato having voiced his thoughts on the matter. Konan's face was as emotionless as ever, but inside she was a storm of emotions. She finally saw it, saw how lost her last friend was. They were no longer fighting for the same goals they once shared, Yahiko's will. Nagato essentially died with his best friend, she reasoned, and she'd been enabling a husk of a man with too much power and too few connections to the world. He'd plunge the world into chaos, create countless orphans like them, lost and starving but with no Jiraiya to aid them. It broke her inside, the thoughts of what she was going to do, but it was time for her to stop being a mere supporting player. Konan, we have the Jinchuriki. Aim's angel thought she'd feel worse about this. There was an uncomfortable calm within her, an acceptance of what would come next. It was simple, emotion so practiced that conscious thought wasn't needed. Nagato tried to gargle out words, demands to know why, but she wouldn't explain. Her friend had long since been lost to her, corrupted by Madara, and she'd been too complacent to save him. He bleed out quickly, her cut on his neck made with the utmost precision. He felt only a moment's pain, but the rest of the time was like succumbing to a sedative. She didn't know if Yahiko would forgive her for what she's done up to this point, for twisting his will into something so ugly and extreme, but she'd have to face him once she crossed over. Konan resolved to stop thinking so much about what she owed the dead, instead deciding on what she could do for the living, starting with Ame. She walked out of the cave Nagato and she were hidden in, her gait even. The light shining from the entrance felt like a heavy-handed metaphor, but she could appreciate it all the same. She had to destroy the Akatsuki to receive her new dawn. She continued out of the cave and greeted the party waiting for her, one of her conditions for aiding Konoha. Sensei. She was wrapped up in a bear hug almost before the word left her mouth. Jiraiya was something of a rolling stone, but Conan can feel he still cared. He was grieving the loss of another student. Unfortunately, there wasn't time to indulge. He'd have to put on a brave face and continue on. But for the briefest moment, teacher and student could mourn. After the hug ended, Jiraiya returned to Nagato and sealed his body in a scroll, then led Conan to Konoha and then to the Hokage's tower. Hiruzen was awaiting her, alone. Jiraiya was excused and the two village leaders were left to settle matters between them. Conan-san. Sarutobi-san. Before we begin, I must express my deepest gratitude. When I received your message, I was unsure if it could be believed, but I am grateful it was true. Jiraiya informed me about your shared history, so I know words can't articulate the depths of your sacrifice, but I hope we can build something so this never happens again. I accept your words, but make no mistake, I hate Konoha. Because of Konoha, my friends are dead. Because Danzo Shimura convinced Hanzo we were planning a coup, Yahiko lost his life and Nagato lost his way. I don't know if you ordered Danzo to act or simply didn't know, but that means you are either as vile as he was or negligent. I want no alliance with you, only to avoid needless death. A ceasefire, a treaty, call it what you wish, but I will not be involved with Konoha once I leave. Conan was taking a bold stance, but if Konoha attacked Ama after Akatsuki ceased to exist, the other major villages not allied with them will assume the leaf is escalating towards some goal and will respond in kind. Sarutobi would simply damn himself to the violence he claims to not want. It also felt cathartic to tell this man about the mad dog he failed to control and the damage his actions, or inactions, inflicted on people. Hiruzen's facial expression didn't change, but he suspects this occurred around the time Danzo attempted to assassinate him, likely expecting Hanzo to help. He really was negligent, a fool that wanted to see the best in his former friend, to believe Danzo meant well, acted only in the interests of Konoha. The truth was both men lied to themselves and Danzo created an enemy that could have done an untold amount of damage had things been different. This was just another sign he shouldn't be in this chair, he wasn't fit to lead any further. I understand your position, and if there is nothing else, let's us begin. At the recently constructed Uzumaki Manor, several Konoha shinobi busied themselves preparing for a birthday party. Tayuya was handling the music. Karen, Hinata and Ino were setting up the food. Shizen had organized the presents. Tsunade was supervising, which translated into drinking, petting Taunton and making the occasional suggestion on decorations. Team Kurenai, along with Asuma, just returned with the cake. It was a round two-tier citrus cake with passionfruit filling and vanilla icing. The cake was decorated simply, blue frosting with orange spirals on top and a happy birthday, Naruto written on the cake board. Troublesome. Shikamaru spoke with seemingly zero prompting. Everyone, excluding Shino, turned to look at the Nara. He met their questioning looks and sighed. I get this sense when Naruto is being uniquely troublesome. It just went off. Multiple parties had looks of disbelief, while Tsunade cackled. However, Shikamaru's words soon proved to be prophetic. Karen gasped and started shaking, muttering about multiple chakra signatures headed toward Orochimaru and Naruto. All in attendance charged towards the door but were sequestered by an ANBU agent, being ordered to stay in the residence. Tsunade could have overruled the agent, a purple-haired woman in a cat mask, but the agent informed the future Hokage that Sandai Masama was aware of the situation and had a plan in action. All preparation for the party stopped as Karen utilized her sensory abilities to relay what little information she could. It was near impossible to remain at the new Uzumaki compound as she mentioned how Naruto and Orochimaru's chakra signature fluctuated often as if disrupted or they were seriously injured. As more of the fight unfolded, Karen understood less and less. The atmosphere was tense, especially when Karen informed the party one final enemy managed to incapacitate Orochimaru and flee with Naruto, but relief filled the room when she said the signature disappeared, similar to the 5 before it, and left Naruto. At that point, Tsunade made the decision to no longer wait. It was clear her friend and surrogate nephew needed help. She allowed Shizen, Karen and the rest of Team Kurenai to follow her, backing the stationed ANBU down. The pace they traveled increased when they witnessed the moon-like sphere was pierced and then decimated by wood constructs until 3 figures descended from the wreckage. The party discovered Orochimaru first. She'd taken the rod out but hadn't had the chakra to heal her injuries. Karen ran toward his mistress and offered her arm, frowning just slightly at being bitten, but it worked, and the snake Sannin was healed. Once she was able to move, the Konoha ninja moved on to Naruto's location. What happened, Orochi? We were attacked by the Akatsuki leader. What about you? What delayed your response? We were told by an ANBU that Sensei had something in the works and not to interfere. But once Karen sensed you were injured and Naruto was being abducted, we figured the plan went pear-shaped and came running." Orochimaru said nothing in response. She concluded that if Hiruzen did have a plan, he hoped that she would be killed before it took effect while he could claim innocence. It wasn't the worst plan in the world, but it rested on a very large assumption that Pain wouldn't grow frustrated and kill Naruto, figuring catching the actual Kyuubi would be easier once it reformed, if he didn't have a method of breaking the seal in the first place. She would pay him back, but she needed to see her apprentice before anything. The group arrived to see two men standing over Naruto, one kneeling. Tsunade gasped in disbelief while the others cautiously approached. The slug Sannin turned to her friend and watched her shrug in a familiar gesture any time Orochi crossed the line. She resolved to have a talk with her, but it could wait. Tsunade continued over to Naruto and saw her grandfather healing a stab wound. He still had a swollen cheek and right eye as well as bruising around his neck. She didn't speak to her departed family members, instead choosing to heal the damage that hadn't been seen to. In no time Naruto started to stir. The swelling had gone down significantly, and the bruising was gone. He awoke a smiling Shoidai and Tsunade. "Abuken? Yeah, it's me. How are you feeling?" "Like I lost a fight. Is Orochimaru okay?" "I'm fine," his mentor spoke, having made her way to the group once she saw Naruto waking up. "What happened?" "He just collapsed for no reason." "I don't know," Orochimaru answered. "So, Tsunade, you became a medic?" Tobirama asked, and Hashirama lit up. "This is little Tsuna? My, you've grown so beautiful." "Thank you, grandfather." The grandfather and daughter continued to speak as Tobirama paid attention to the male Uzumaki, having noted there was one more keeping her distance. He watched the boy activate a storage seal, after he'd released the reanimation which dispelled in a cloud of smoke, on his wrist, resealing the samahata and retrieving a small rag. He then began to draw a small orb of water from the atmosphere, a method startling similar to Tobirama's own, the former Hokage noted. As a final surprise, he saw the boy freeze the orb, making it solid ice and wrapping it in the rag to use as a cold compress. "I've never known an Uzumaki to have the Hayatan bloodline. Are you part Yuki?" "No, and I have no bloodline," Naruto said, holding the makeshift ice pack to his head. "You don't need a bloodline to use the sub-elements, that's a myth. I see ninjutsu has advanced since my time. Tell me, who made this breakthrough? Was it Hiruzen?" Tobirama watched the boy's face adopt a vicious scowl at the mention of his student. Time permitting, he would get to the bottom of that. The Uzumaki had been a good ally and distant family. He couldn't imagine why one would hate Hiruzen. "No one taught me, I figured it out on my own." "Interesting. Is this talent why you were chosen?" He saw another scowl. "No. Granduncle, let's somewhere private and I'll fill you in on everything," Tsunade said, overhearing the discussion. He nodded and they prepared to move out. Naruto went to his team, all dressed rather casually. "Hey guys, what were you doing before you came here?" "We were at your home, Naruto," Kurenai asked, and saw the boy's surprised face. "Why?" He knew he told them he'd be with Orochimaru at this time. They just looked at him, and then each other. "He doesn't know," Shino concluded. "Naruto-san, today is your birthday, we were planning a surprise party." "Oh," Naruto replied and tried to ignore the feeling in his chest. He hadn't celebrated his birthday in years, not since he thought the old man turned on him. "I'm sorry the surprise was ruined, guys, but I appreciate it." Nothing more needed to be said as they moved toward his home in silence. When they returned, Naruto saw who else was in attendance. Tayuya, who was yelling at Kakashi about his stupid excuses, Ino talking with Hinata while Asuma was speaking to Jiraiya. Once they noticed his return, they yelled surprise, and Naruto smiled brightly, scratching the back of his head as he suddenly felt very bashful. The party went on. As they ate and talked, Tsunade eventually returning with the first two Hokage. It felt overwhelming for the Uzumaki heir. 2 years ago he'd given up hope things would change, that he'd really make connections. He realized, now, his opinion of the village and his place in it was tied to his feelings toward the old man. Once he lost faith in Hiruzen, Naruto wrote off the entire village as being reflexively and resolutely against him. He couldn't believe they'd ever change, and if they could never accept him, he could never be Hokage. He entered a mild depression when he stopped believing things could improve and had to let go of his first dream as well as the memories of the kind old man that said it were possible. Initially, Naruto concluded that Hiruzen had simply been lying to him in order to keep the spirits of the village's Jinchuriki up and him mentally stable. It was a bitter pill to swallow that he was manipulated by the Hokage. When he discovered his heritage, and what Hiruzen kept from him, Naruto had too long believed the bastard as nothing but a craven manipulator to ever reconsider the Sandaime's motives. It was just more evidence he never would have permitted Naruto to be more than a war deterrent. After Ichiro's bombing attempt and the talk with Kurenai-sensei immediately following, Naruto thought about her words, about how he'd let his hatred for the old man cause him to channel at others. He had to conclude she was right, and if he were maintaining a negative view of the village, not that they'd done anything to change it, because of Hiruzen, then he wasn't being fair in the strictest sense. Maybe they could change, maybe his dream wasn't foolish. He hated it, but a part of him still wanted acceptance from the village, acknowledgement that he was of value. To receive that, he'd have to acknowledge them and allow the possibility they could change. As long as he let his antipathy for the Sandaime color his impression of everyone else, that could never happen. He didn't, however, think he could ever truly forgive or reconcile with the old man. He may have understood his reasons, the fact remained he preferred to save face than risk trusting Naruto, knowing he was all the Uzumaki had. It was a deep betrayal of the bond they shared. The man's vanity was clearly more important than anything they forged. But he didn't need Hiruzen anymore. He built a family, people he could trust and lean on. People that weren't just going to go away. He wasn't alone anymore. After the gift exchange the party wound down, Naruto stepped out, retreating to the roof. Once he reached it, Naruto watched the sunset with a serene smile on his face. It had been an emotionally draining day, but one of his better birthdays, if not the best, save for the near-death experience. The air was starting to cool, as was common for the fall, but it felt nice. Soon, Naruto was joined by another party, the Nidaime Hokage. Nidaime-sama. Tobirama sat beside the Uzumaki. There is no need for such formality, not for a dead man, Naruto. Then what would you prefer I call you? Tobirama is fine. I may have a reputation as a joyless hard-ass, but I never made my family call me by my title. I'll keep that in mind, Nidaime-sama, Naruto said with a smile. Tobirama cracked one as well. Cheeky, like much of your clan. The legendary Senju sighed. I owe you an apology, Naruto. Not only as a Jinchuriki but as the future leader of the Uzumaki. Tsunade has filled me in on the major events that have occurred since my death. As much as I wish I could say I am surprised, the truth is everything she said made sense. It is not that I knew Hiruzen nor Danzo would do these things, it simply didn't fall outside their character. The man sighed again. Hiruzen was a preternaturally talented ninja with a caring nature. He was also one that soaked up flattery and praise. Not to mention slipping into sentimentality when logic was needed. Danzo was talented, nowhere near Hiruzen, but a boy with a great deal of potential. He was also overly rigid and given to dichotomous thinking and fanaticism. I overwatched their development, and failed to curtail these flaws. You and yours have suffered for this, and I request your forgiveness. I forgive you. Besides, the old man is responsible for his own choices. He is, but a part of you will always feel some measure of responsibility for those you teach, especially when you assign them your successor. Naruto just nodded. He couldn't exactly relate. He's only ever taught things to children too young to have done anything too bad beyond pranks. What made you dedicate yourself to ninjutsu, especially at such a young age? The academy sensei were jerks and weren't going to teach any ninjutsu for 2 years, but several of my classmates would be learning clan techniques well before then. I decided if they weren't going to teach ninjutsu, I'd make my own and have a library filled with clan techniques to give my family. I didn't know the Uzumaki were a clan at that point, but I was determined to make them one. Bratty motivation, but the follow-through is commendable. Now, what about the sub-elements? Chakra isn't magic. We may not understand all of what it can do, but it does obey certain rules and it is naturally existing. Almost all chakra researchers agree on that. If that's the case, then why would it operate so contrary to matter that's chakra-free? You can make water vapor, water, even viscous liquids but not ice? Or mud, stone, dust but not lava? Didn't make sense to me, and since no one was around to tell me I was wrong, I never believed I couldn't do it. I may have had a bit of an ego as well. So, the dual elements required for the sub-elements isn't true? It is, but it's about how you mold that chakra. Those with Kekkei Genkai must have some genetic predisposition to combine their elements. It may be the case the real Kekkei Genkai is innately knowing how to merge and mold various elements, but because they are rarely born with more than 2 affinities, they didn't push themselves to see. Interesting. I must admit I am from an era that took it as holy writ only bloodline users could perform those types of nature transformation. To see that proven wrong is quite the treat. You mentioned lava and ice. Are those the only 2 you can currently utilize? Naruto started grinning, enjoying being able to show off for his idol. The only 2 that are even close to battle ready. He cupped his hands together and closed his eyes, focusing on his internal energy. Shortly, various strings of light was being emitted from his palm. Naruto then attempted to direct the energy, managing to send a beam the width of a pencil toward a nearby tree, creating a small hole. Lightning is already a plasma, combined with water, and you create a process of electrolysis and then ionization of the separated hydrogen, making the storm release. Increased power and control. Naruto wiped the beads of sweat that started to form on his head, still smiling. That is truly impressive, and to think you can mimic Kumo's signature bloodline. This pleases me greatly. It also affirms my decision. The Night said and saw Naruto's puzzled gaze. In your study there are 2 scrolls, brother, and I left for you and the clan. I believe you will put the knowledge to good use. Now I must depart. I need to see Sara before your master releases the jutsu. It has been a pleasure, Naruto. Naruto knew the man wouldn't be here long and nodded before saying goodbye. He watched the Night leave and then laid back down on the roof as the last of the sun dipped below the horizon. Even with the abduction attempt, Naruto had to consider this the best birthday ever. Kukuku, it appears my apprentice has been keeping secrets from me. Naruto didn't jump when Orochimaru made her presence known. He'd gotten used to her sneaking up on him. She sat beside him, now dressed in a red kimono. I can't reveal everything to my rival, Naruto replied cheekily. Now you're learning. It unfortunately may be your final lesson. Naruto looked at her in confusion. Your apprenticeship was to last up to the invasion. I assume the invasion has been cancelled and there is no way Sarutobi will allow our arrangement to continue. Naruto frowned at that, knowing it was true. What happens now? Jiraiya will likely push for you to go on a training trip with him, and I think you should go. I would not have expected that, Naruto admitted. And I don't blame you. I may not have much use for Jiraiya, but he isn't completely worthless. Naruto chuckled, considering that high praise. A part of him was reluctant to go. He didn't want to leave his family and friends so soon after having made those connections. He didn't want to leave his team. He was sure he still had much to learn from Kurenai-sensei. Shika would get lazy if he weren't here to motivate him, and Shino would get all quiet and reserved. They made each other better, so to leave to focus solely on his development felt selfish. However, Naruto did want to get to know his godfather. Jiraiya hadn't been in the village much, and a training trip would provide ample time to build a relationship. He could also learn more about his father. Also, even if he only provided a sparring partner, training with Jiraiya would have to get him stronger, as he had no illusion he could defeat any of the Sannin without the aid of his teammates, and weeks of planning. It still sucked that he wouldn't learn under Orochimaru anymore, someone that had supported him for longer than he initially knew, but if even she were recommending he do this, he couldn't deny the wisdom of the move. I guess it makes sense. Sucks I can't just keep learning with you. Kukuku, I'm not going anywhere. This is just the end of one phase of our relationship. Rig dash. I don't just allow anyone to see me naked and live to tell about it. She watched as the boy started to blush and scratch the back of his head. Kukuku, should I take it as a compliment that managed to stand out during a life and death battle? Such a little charmer. Since you aren't my Shusho anymore, I can get you back for all your teasing, Tebeo. Oh, really? The snake Sannin moved closer, now whispering in the Uzumaki's ear. Then I may just have to escalate before you can. She then kissed him on the cheek and laughed as his entire face reddened. Good night, Naruto-kun, she said between laughs, not giving her student a chance to respond. Naruto took a few moments to compose himself before returning inside. The blush was gone, so he was confident there were no witnesses to anything he'd done on the roof. He returned to the living room to see Shino and Shika seemingly in a heated debate. He was a little concerned as the two never argue. Guys, what's wrong? Oh, Naruto-san, maybe you can help us resolve this. Troublesome, I agree, we may need your input. Sure, what's wrong? Well, I was telling Shino if I got beat up in front of a girl I liked, I'd probably want to die from embarrassment. Whereas I believe I'd simply want to renounce my name and title while I went into hiding from the shame. As we have no experience with this, we thought you might be able to help us out. Naruto grit his teeth at the pair of wise asses. If you tell me who you like, that can be rectified with ease, Tebeo. I believe Temari-san will be arriving soon. Shikamaru looked at Shino in mild surprise. He didn't think the Abdurrahim would turn on him just yet, but he was prepared. Well, lucky for you, we don't need to wait. We don't even need to leave. Ite-dash. Shikamaru was tackled by Shino in an effort to shut him up. Naruto stood in shock at what Shikamaru was about to say, before laughing and clutching his stomach. Shino, didn't anyone ever tell you not to play with fire? Especially not a raging freaking inferno. You can't handle that, you're not ready for that. What I am and am not ready for is my decision, besides it's not like she's notorious nor beats me down every day. He has a point. I thought Nara men were handpicked, but that's downright submissive. I'm nobody's bottom. And what about you, Shika? You say in front of an arena full of people, a man can't lose to a girl, troublesome, and then give up like a buster. Shikamaru bristled at Naruto's impression of him. That was very Buster-like. I was embarrassed. Shino added. You had a draw with a boy in cat pajamas, Shikamaru retorted. It was a manly draw. Not really, you had a weird twitch going on. Frankly, you both shamed Kurenai-sensei. Thank the sage I was there to clean things up, per usual, Naruto observed. Land of vegetables / land of vegetables. Oh no. Neither of you are blaming me for that. Why not? You're a trouble magnet, Shikamaru responded. A short trouble magnet, Shino added. With no guys. Screw both you shameful bastards. Tough talk for a half pint. Shikamaru, I believe you should have called it big talk to contrast with his lack of stature. I might be slightly shorter than you, but I'll wash both you scrubs. Let's step outside. Why? To show you who is the scrub. Spoiler warning, it is you. Troublesome, even I have some pride. Let's do this. The boys departed towards the backyard, oblivious or indifferent to the audience they'd attracted with their argument. The onlookers watched as the Chunin shinobi disregarded all technique and tactics in their bout of horseplay. It looked more like three brothers roughhousing than actual ninja combat. Your cute little students are being adorable again, Kurenai, said Kakashi. I can't argue with you there. They've come a long way in a year. You've done well with them. Asuma praised his significant other. They made it easy. Well, not at first, but eventually they gelled. You considering taking another team in the future? Asuma questioned, as all three were Chunin she could if she desired so. He saw her shake her head. Unless it was absolutely necessary, I couldn't imagine it. Those are my boys out there. I'd compare any future team I had to them. It wouldn't be fair. The three Jounin continued to chat as they watched the rest of Team Kurenai play. One partygoer, however, was not amused by their antics and let it be known. Stump, if you and those other two dipshits don't get in here and eat some motherfucking cake, I'll castrate all three of you tree-hugging bitches, Taiyuya shouted from a window. Naruto looked sheepish from the ground, Shino adjusted his glasses and Shikamaru just muttered troublesome. She slammed the windows shut, believing she'd done enough. Shino, you need to control your chick, Shikamaru said. Shino's only response was for the buzzing to grow louder but not loud enough to drown out Naruto's laughter. You know we need to talk about this, Tsunade said as Orochimaru and she made their way to the Hokage tower. She was upset with her friend and disappointed. If I hadn't resurrected them I would be dead. However angry you are at me, at least acknowledge that. Of course I wouldn't want you dead, but I have a feeling you didn't find DNA samples of my grandfather and uncle as a means of self-defense. You're right. I planned to use your great-uncle's jutsu to kill Sensei. Plans changed and an invasion was no longer necessary. Tsunade's eyes went wide. Orochi, you were going to invade Konoha? You know how many people you could have hurt, killed? Thousands. And they would have been worth it to kill Sensei. You know I don't care. And since I didn't do it, you shouldn't either. I know you can care. Oto would be a completely miserable place if you simply couldn't. Care is overstating it. I don't need my shinobi to live in squalor. If they are comfortable, they are more productive. Indifference isn't malice, you know that. I don't care, but unless it becomes necessary, I also see no value in causing harm. But Sensei was? Years after you left? No, that doesn't make sense. Orochi, what aren't you telling me? I have my reasons, and once again, I didn't do it, so it doesn't matter. It does if you still plan to kill him. You mean like he tried to kill me today? Tsunade looked surprised but waited for her friend to expound. He's had a specific A and B watching Naruto, and I for the entire time I've been training him. Except yesterday and today. And it just so happens we get attacked by pain with no backup in sight. He planned to have me die before his plan to stop pain was enacted. Tsunade grimaced. Some of that could be chalked up to coincidence, but the problem is, ninja don't believe in coincidence. Sure, they've heard about them but have never seen them. Dig deep enough and you'll find someone pulling strings. There was a lot of missing information, but she couldn't reject Orochi's conclusion. Tsunade didn't know if her former sensei believed she'd turn a blind eye to his dealings similar to how he did for Danzo, but she had no intention of doing that. He needed to be unseated. His age and bias against Orochi was leading him toward ruin, and he'd done nothing to change that. The two legendary kunoichi arrived to the tower and headed toward the Sandaime's office. They could overhear him speaking to the Shodai and the Night Aim. The two women entered, causing the discussions to stop. The Sandaime immediately narrows his eyes at his once favorite student. That she would use such an abominable jutsu and bring back former Hokage while she were at it, he considered it more evidence of how rotten she was to the very core of her being. I assume you have come to release us? Tobirama asked. Yes, I have. Unless Sensei has something else to say. Have you said all you wanted to, Sarutobi-sensei? Get out of my office, Orochimaru. Now! Kakuku, I'll give you two a moment with Tsunade, I'll be outside. She said and then exited the office. Saru, remember what I told you. Hiruzen grimaced but nodded at his teacher's words. Hashirama was too busy crying and hugging Tsunade to care about much of anything else, embarrassing Tobirama greatly. The three Senjus said their final words and the first two Hokage went to meet Orochimaru, to return to the Pure Land. Tsunade wiped the unshed tears from her eyes before leveling a glare at her sensei. You hoped Orochimaru would be killed in the attack today. It wasn't a question nor an accusation. She's evil and will corrupt Naruto-kun along with who knows how many others. She's a threat, I wish you could see it. I'm not just some paranoid old man. If you make her your enemy, she will be your enemy. And nothing she's done has harmed Naruto, can you say the same? When Hiruzen didn't answer, she continued. I'm not going to ignore people operating behind my back, sensei, not even you. You wanted me to be Hokage, but I won't be a puppet, nor am I too tired to meet any challenges to my authority. I consider myself warned. Good. Was the last thing the Senju princess said before departing for the night. Hiruzen waited several moments before doing the same, but his destination was not home, not yet. He entered a Securian BU facility, the operatives bowing in respect as he walked the halls. It didn't take him long to reach the interrogation room he was seeking. Ibiki had clearly been hard at work, the subject looked as if he was nearing his breaking point. That was fine, he was a disposable piece in this game. Hiruzen entered, instantly gaining the attention of his top interrogator, and the man's latest subject. At ease, Ibiki, he ordered, and the bear of a man complied. Hiruzen took a seat at the table, beside Ibiki but across from the subject. You have exactly one chance to save your life. How? You will be my spy, you will inform me of everything Orochimaru does, where she goes and who she meets. No. Kabuto-san, I don't think you understand. I could have you killed right now for leaking my shinobi's whereabouts to Sasori. That's treason. But instant death would be a mercy. I could turn over the signed statement of AIM's new leader to Orochimaru directly and let her do as she pleases. How many weeks do you think you'd spend dying under her care? Kabuto paled as a great deal of fear entered his eyes. Orochimaru would make him suffer for as long as she could. But worse than the torture, she'd lose all respect and fondness for the medic she saved from Sasori. He didn't want to continue to betray her, but he wasn't self-sacrificial. He agreed to work with the Sandaime, hating himself more with every word spoken. Hiruzen, by no means, trusted the boy. If he provided good intel, then it would be a plus, but if he faltered or attempted to obfuscate for Orochimaru, Hiruzen would show her the confession and plant a seed of mistrust in her other assets. Hopefully, she'd turn cruel and alienate more and more of them, people that would welcome Hiruzen's kindness and grandfatherly charm. Kabuto may not be enough to take her down, but he'd be a start, the tipping point to her downfall.